Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the regular council meeting to order. Mayor Davey.
Here.
Councilmember Laredo.
He's here.
Councilmember London.
Is not
Vice Mayor
here.
McCormick.
She's here.
She's here. She just went to
Councilmember Moss.
the private room.
Councilmember Petros. Here. And Councilmember Segurola.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Mayor. If Father Juan Carlos Paguagua from St. Agnes Church is here to provide us with an invocation.
Dear God, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here this evening. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health. We need to fulfill our callings for sustenance. And also, we ask you to bond us in friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thanks as well for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us, even so, from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scripture, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for the Assembly Council. I'm asking that you will graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflict, interest, and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and the true needs of our people, keen thirst for justice and righteousness, confidence in what is good and fitting, and the ability to work together in harmony even when there is an honest disagreement, personal peace, and their lives enjoying their task. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in this community. We ask this in love. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item, Mayor, is brief comments by council.
Okay. I wanted to speak, I'm going to start the brief comments. I want to speak to what happened at our January 15th meeting. Due to some confusion, which frankly was on my part, learning how to do an agenda and some confusion and some tabs, a member of our community was left feeling insulted and dismissed by me. While Don and I spoke the next day about what had transpired, I want to state publicly how sorry I am that Don felt that in any way what happened that night was intended as a slight against him, or that I was not cognizant of his dedication that he has shown to this community. Don is an active and valued volunteer who has provided his breadth of knowledge and intelligence to this body on more occasions than I can recount right here. His contributions to the Underground Utilities Task Force continue to be vital to that body and its effectiveness. If there are hurt feelings over that evening, I am truly sorry for my part in causing them. I look forward to Don Ellisberg's continued active participation in our governance. And I just wanted to put that out there. I know he's not here tonight, but I wanted that on the record. So we had a nice conversation, but I wanted that out there. Brett?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I want to thank the Underground Utility Task Force members, Ignacio as the liaison, the staff members, our manager, that have been putting in the immense amount of time that they have been putting in, I think, almost each week, staying until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, making difficult decisions here and reviewing the complexity of the project. And again, your service is very well recognized, and I want to thank you guys a lot, and also the council members who've been attending those as well. So thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
I just want to add a comment on the record. I want to thank Brett because I jumped in as a liaison very recently. Brett was the liaison and helped drive the ship for over a year. And the Underground Utilities is going to come to the forefront of this village very soon, and Brett is the reason we pushed it through in the beginning. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have to make echo. I attended both of the 2 or 3 meetings, and I am amazed at the quality of people on that committee. They really are, first of all, long hours, and also they really have put get into really boring stuff, and we're lucky to have that committee. And Ignacio, congratulate on both of you. You started. It's going to be a tough decision, but these people have done a great job.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Petros, anybody? Okay. All right.
Next item, Mayor, is agenda approval, deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawals.
I have one addition. Steve Simon would like to make a presentation to us on the 401 Hampton Park. I had him on, then took him off. We weren't sure of the schedule, but he is available to come tonight. So at some point, he may not be here on time to hit 7C. But if he's not, then I'll squeeze him. If it's okay, I'd like to put him in later.
Did you say, Councilor, that we needed to move 9?
Well, you're right, and we're going to move 9. I apologize.
Okay.
That is also.
Okay.
I apologize. If the item for the 401 Hampton presentation is not heard at 7C, what's the second or?
Well, we'll wait, and if they show up, we'll just slip them back into the rotation.
Got it.
Okay, and then, yes, we'd like to move the second reading of the ordinance, which is 9A1. Let's just move that. Let's put that up before special presentations. I think we've heard everything. If everybody, that would be my proposal.
Should I just move it again? Is that how it goes?
Well, we'll have to move it when it comes up, but we'll move it essentially up just after public comments.
Okay.
Okay?
What was 7C you said?
7C will be presentation on 401 Hampton Park. Councilmember Petros?
I would like to add the discussion items is just an update of the boat show coming in 2 weeks. We have the boat show coming in 2 weeks, and I'd just like to discuss, I had a meeting with the traffic planning and a new option for Key Biscayne residents. So if we could add that as a discussion item.
That item would be 11A12.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, and I apologize if this is out of sorts, but regarding your agenda items, 11A1 through 5,
Right.
I have an idea that I'd like to present to the council regarding the current committees we have and how we handle them going forward. I don't know if you want me to express it now or when we get to the agenda items.
No, why don't we do that when we do it at 1? You can just bring it up at 1 when I explain what my thoughts are, and then we'll go forward from there.
All those in favor?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
The manager has something.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to request to defer item 7B, the Art and Public Places presentation.
Yeah, that's fine.
I would like to add a manager's report on Lime Bike as item 11D1. I'd like to add an update on the Building, Planning, Zoning, Code Compliance Department as item 11D2, and then push the existing 2 reports down to 11D3 and 11D4.
Sorry, what was your second one?
Lime Bike and an update on the Building Department.
Update on building department would be 11D2, and I apologize, 11D3. Is there 11D3?
That would be fiscal year 2018, 2019 quarterly budget report to council, and then D4 would be naming of 401 Hampton Lane Park. Does that make sense?
11D1 is the line bike.
Line bike update.
11D2 is update on building.
Building zoning department.
11.3 is the fiscal year, and the 11D4 would be naming of 401.
Correct.
Perfect.
All right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries.
All right,
Next-
public comment? I'm sorry, you're supposed to say that part.
It's okay. Public comments?
First speaker is Patricia Woodson.
Well, she comes up, Mr. Mayor, on the adjournment, Madam Clerk,
Yes, sir.
when it says on A, that little paragraph, can we add, I think I brought this up, a lobbyist, disclosure of lobbyists, consultants, and or employees as a disclosure? That would be 14I.
Yes,
So
sir.
that anybody who is a consultant or lobbyist should just disclose.
Yeah,
it.
disclose
Yeah.
when they come up.
So,
I am
thank you. I'm sorry
I am
for
a
the
lobbyist on behalf of,
Yeah.
okay.
Do we have that on the sign-in?
It's on the
Yes.
form, yes,
Correct.
it's on the form. Some people don't check either box, though. They just, so I think Councilmember Larrea's point is well taken, that they must.
I will
make this
definitely
I
add it.
agree, I just wanted to make sure it was also
Correct,
there,
it
because I
is.
know this has come up before.
Well, hello again. Patricia Woodson, 472 Warren Lane. Along with the item for naming of our new neighborhood park and celebration of this wonderful $828,000 that we received to replenish the land trust fund, I just wanted to acknowledge and thank the village and our very, very hardworking land acquisition committee, which actually was formed along with the land trust in 2010. And this is the first park since the Village Green that the village has purchased. So it's a very diligent, persistent committee. We don't get discouraged. But we have been requesting for some time some additional members, new members, to help us do our work. And in our ongoing mission to develop and maintain a continual understanding in the shifting patterns of properties that become available, what has the potential for the greatest meaning, the biggest impact for the people in most need of parks, recreation, and open space. We've been looking forward very much to Vision 2040 because parks planning, of course, is best done in the most holistic way imaginable, and that's what that process will be. So whether it's a member of our committee, we do have the knowledge and the experience for many, many years, or someone else who does. I really hope that we have a very strong voice, someone with a lot of experience on Vision 2040 for parks planning. It's always been at least number 2 in all of our citizen surveys. So thank you so much for your work and ongoing support and for getting Vision 2040 going. Thank you.
This is, Ms. Mayor, I know that the manager and your direction, and you saw the example before, but we all, and the administration has to do a better job of communicating. These are the great stories that people don't get. The work that these people have done to acquire, and then with Todd's help and everything else, to get 50% refund or close. I mean, people need to also hear that. And they were here great because of, people do get motivated more with negative things or impacting things. But these are the kind of things we got to get a professional, get the word out so that people understand that they're people doing great things every day in this community.
I would agree.
But perhaps, I know you're working on bettering communication. So this is another example of a great story that needs to be told. I'm sorry, but I think it's fabulous.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah.
Tanner, are you coming up to speak about everything? That's the subject matter. The subject matter is everything. And she bribed us with banana cream pie, so frankly, we're not going to worry about the 3 minutes.
My glass is in a list, and congratulations, everybody. That was a tough crowd, so I commend you all. There was something that was said at the last council meeting that bothered me. Excuse me. And it was that it was a comment that we shouldn't give money or do anything unless we get something in return. I think this is a bad example to set for our children. Maybe we should do it because it's the right thing to do. The community center. I think it's way too big. I realize we need more space, but I'm not interested in going all the way into the Village Green that much. I'm not interested in cutting down more trees, and I certainly don't want the playground shoved in the corner by the bathrooms. The parking, as I understand it, they are expanding the underground parking, and so it'll be 10 more spaces. Is that right?
I think it's more than, not more
Yeah,
than
but they're
10.
expanding it. So they're going to
Yes.
close that parking lot while this is going on.
No.
They're not going to close the parking.
They're going to build it, and then they'll take the wall down.
Okay, because I don't think 10 more spaces are going to do it. I mean, that's not.
No, I think it's a
right
lot
now.
more than that, and it doesn't
55, Mayor.
impact.
Okay.
55.
55, okay, well, I think it's too big. This is what I want to find out. What happened to the parking garage they were working on for a million years that were going to go over the police parking, okay? What happened to the park at 540 or 530 over there that we started on 2 or 3 years ago? What happened to Bear Cut Bridge? Are we going to wait till it just descends into the water before we do anything? And what happened to the entry block? Are we bidding on the entry block? Not bidding on the entry block? All these things come up. Everybody talks about them, and then I don't hear from them again.
That's fair.
So
Thank you,
I've had
Ann.
the same phone number for 50 years. Call me or email me.
All right. Thank you, Ann. Derek, did you want to speak to sustainability again?
No, sir.
You're okay?
Thank you.
Theo Holloway?
You're up.
Oh,
You're up.
all right, that was quick.
That's how efficient we are.
Yeah, 575 Crandon Boulevard, Key Biscayne, Florida. I'd like to just start by showing a video because
I actually have it open already for you.
oh, right there. Oh, okay. Thanks.
Community
It's
center.
like the one campaign that day in and day out are working to get us closer to our goal of an AIDS-free generation. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Simon family of Key Biscayne for their exemplary work on the yet-to-be-named park located in my congressional district at 401 Hampton Lane in Key Biscayne, the first neighborhood park for their community. I'd like to thank Ariel Simon, the horticultural advisor, Brett Simon, the architectural designer, and their father, Stephen Simon, the project coordinator, who worked tirelessly as volunteers to see this vision into fruition. And it is not just any park. It is just not any effort. In an editorial, the community newspaper, the Islander News, wrote, "The park, put simply, is beautiful, but the story behind it is even more so. From the beginning, Stephen, who has a history of effective community leadership, saw an opportunity to work with local elected officials to tackle a problem which they inherited. Stephen brought in his daughter, Ariel, who worked at Miami's renowned botanical garden and became a certified horticulturist, and his son Brett, who has a master's degree in architecture and craftsmanship education and furniture design, and other volunteers and seasoned professionals. Together, they all worked as a team, drafting proposals and securing the necessary funds to see this project through. And here's how the Simon family beautifully described and included South Florida limestone in their proposal. They said, "We incorporated that natural material in our park design so that metaphorically we bring the bedrock upon which this island community of shifting sands was founded to the surface. Functionally and aesthetically, limestone is an integral part of our creation of a gathering place in our first neighborhood park." The story, which is well documented in Key Biscayne's Islander News over the past 3 years, truly shows what is possible when people come together with a desire and a drive to do something positive for the betterment of their community. I invite all of my congressional colleagues to come to Key Biscayne and visit that island paradise, and especially to see this park for yourself. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And
And bring money.
You're not recognized.
All right. That was your 3 minutes. Thank you.
I think I still have about a minute left, but I just want to make sure, obviously, I think you guys have seen that before, but I'm not sure if the rest of the community got to see it.
No, that's great. Thank you.
And having been part of the process when we voted to not only purchase the park, but then determine how we were going to decorate or landscape the park, obviously, Representative Rose-Layton did a great job of explaining that whole process. And so I just wanted to thank the Simons,
right,
as well as encourage you guys to continue to purchase land. I think it's critical, and you can see that the community is behind it, and it pays dividends into perpetuity.
Right.
So,
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for bringing that.
Yeah, that was awesome. Anybody else want to speak?
Yes.
Ed?
I want to talk briefly about how we appoint people to boards. At the last council meeting, we had a lot of controversy about this, ranging from I don't know the person to the mayor having his prerogative in naming people to the boards. Now, I know a little bit about what Miami Shores does. They have the person fill out an application, which I have here. And I've given a copy to the mayor. An application. Then they appear before the council for a couple of minutes, explaining their resume, their background, their skills, what they're going to bring to the table in terms of joining that board. So we, the public, gets to know who these people are as well as the council. I think we ought to change that. We have some people on our boards, and I'm going to name Art in Public Places because you're going to hear about that, having people go back there 15 years. Art changes all the time, but our boards, like Art in Public Places, don't change at all, blocking people out, new ideas. It's about time we change. Miami Shores is light years ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Anybody else? All right, we're going to close, close public comments.
Next item, Mayor, is an ordinance on second reading, an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Chapter 30, Article 2, definitions to provide definitions related to medical marijuana, amending Chapter 30, Article 5, Schedule of District Use and Setback Regulations to amend the list of permitted, conditional, and prohibited uses in commercial districts to address medical marijuana, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Somebody move this?
I move it.
Okay, let's open it for public comments. Has anybody not spoken to medical marijuana yet? This is the last time, folks. I'm not kidding. Okay, we're going to close public comments on this issue. Discussion. I think anybody want to?
Do we have to amend what's written here?
Yes.
Well, right. Okay, that's fair enough.
Can I make the motion to amend?
Correct. You can make a
second
motion
it.
I'll
to
make a
amend
motion to amend.
consistent with what the LPA did, which was to add as a prohibited use medical marijuana dispensary in accordance with section 381.9864 to statutes. The dispensing of marijuana in any form by any person or business is prohibited, and also striking that that medical marijuana uses, including pharmacies and medical marijuana dispensaries, are no longer expressly permitted use in the district.
Well, my motion was consistent with the first motion, so it doesn't need an amendment.
Well, you moved it on to the table. You brought it on the table. He then amended it to.
Okay, so we wind up at the same
We're
place.
At the
It's the
spot.
same, the
Okay.
same spot.
Just procedure.
Okay, Councilor.
All right. Anybody have comments?
I apologize. Brett Moss made the motion. I'm sorry, and it was seconded by.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilmember Petros. Okay.
Roll call.
Yeah, roll call.
Vice Mayor McCormick,
As amended, yes.
as amended. Councilmember Moss,
Yes.
Councilmember Petros,
Yes.
Councilmember Sigorola,
Yes.
Mayor Davy,
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted on second reading. Next item, under special presentations, is an Underground Utility Task Force report to council.
Excuse me, Mayor, did you want me to respond to the items? that
I'm
were
sorry.
brought
Yeah,
up in public comments?
I apologize. I've got a million things running through my head. Yes, if you could respond to Ms. Tainer's numerous comments.
Yes, so in the spirit of trying to improve communications, I think we've all come to at least one effective means are these meetings. So I will thank you for your questions, and I'll take the opportunity to give updates on the 4 things I noted. So with regard to the parking lot behind the village, a few months back, the county commission had an item on their agenda to sell the parcel to the village. The item was withdrawn from the county commission agenda, and the decision was not made to proceed. On our side, we have insured the parcel. We are essentially tenants at will. And so the parcel, and God forbid anything happened there, we're covered. And at this point, we are hanging tight until a new agreement can be discussed and presented and decided on by the county commission. With regard to 530 Crandon, so the Village Council did authorize $1.34 million in the fiscal 19 capital improvement program to fund the development of the park. Right now, we're working through the design phase, and we hope to put out the bid for construction soon. And our goal is to be able to deliver that project pursuant to the approved site plan within this calendar year. With regard to Bearcut Bridge, the staff, we've been working for months to try to coordinate a meeting with all of the interested parties in Bearcut Bridge. And actually last week, I believe it was January 30th, we were able to host here in Key Biscayne, Miami-Dade County Public Works Bridge Division, Miami-Dade County Police Department, including the Director of Miami-Dade County Police and 3 of his senior officers attended. The Department of Emergency Management Department Director attended. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers attended. And with regard to village staff, I was there with Chief Press, Fire Representation, Public Works, and the Building Department. The only invitee that wasn't able to make it due to the federal shutdown was the Coast Guard. So we're going to have to reconvene and meet with them. And the group began discussing what, God forbid, if there was a catastrophic failure of the bridge, what would the immediate plans be? We started talking about what the mobilization time would be for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to put in certain floating bridges and how long that mobilization would take. We also are discussing what long-term solutions exist. So we're looking at perhaps, how far can we get down the path of design to a more robust bridge in the long run. We also talked about being able to communicate to our community what the status of the bridge is from an engineering perspective. And on the next council meeting on the 26th, we're planning on having both the Director of Emergency Management from Miami-Dade County as well as the Public Works Division Director of Bridges come to present to the council and to the community what the status of the bridge is from an engineering perspective, as well as what emergency preparedness activities the village is working on. So we have made progress on Bearcut. With regard to the entry block, the council directed the village attorney and I to negotiate the acquisition of the entry block. There was an initial meeting with Steve Helfman and myself. An offer was made. Right now, the ball is in the court of the owners of the entry block to provide a counter.
Thank you.
And as it relates to her first point, Mayor?
Yes.
So you get the language right. We did not say that we needed to give something in return for something. Quite the contrary, in that time, if I think what you're talking about, we talked about investing. We used the word investing in the Mast Academy and other things. We actually used that word because we wanted to commit the fact that we are investing.
I'm referring to a comment that Ed London made in reference to...
Yeah.
Oh.
That's about it. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. We got it.
Sorry.
All right. Let's go. Underground Utility Task Force report to council. Michelle Estevez. All in 3 minutes.
Yes, sir.
She can do it.
She could
Why
do it,
not?
actually. She'd be the one person.
That was a very good report.
Good evening, Council. Michelle Estevez, 798 Crandon Boulevard. I don't know how I ended up to be the chair of the committee. I guess because I was the only woman, but here I am. The ordinance creating the Underground Utility Task Force was adopted by Council June 13, 2017. The task force members were appointed and the first meeting was held on November 15, 2017. Since then, the task force has held 15 meetings that have lasted between 3 to 4 hours each. The task force members are very aware that this is a huge project. What I call it personally is a monster, but we are getting there. We have had presentations from providers and experts in the fields, and all of these meetings, that's why the meetings, they had last that long. The council hired Kim LeHorn and Associates as consultant to develop the master plan. And the master plan, as to date, that we have received is a 130-page draft that we have worked long hours to review and provide recommendations to Kimberly, including our village manager, as first month in the job, have go over and review the master plan, and she have provide information to Kimberly and comments to them as well. This master plan will be submitted to the council for final review and approval. The Underground Utility Task Force website prepared by Village Consultant Media Relations Group has been launched. The website link will be placed on a visible place in our village website for residents to have easy way to find this website. And the website would be updated as we move on with the project. We have an e-blast ready to be sent to residents informing of the website, including the workshop date of February 19. At the February 19 workshop, we will have remarks from our village manager. A summary and overview of the project will be presented by a task force member prepared by consultant Kimberly Horn. There will be an overview presentation of funding options available to the village and financing methods by the village CFO, Chris Wallace, and financial advisor, Lourdes Abadin. We will have a presentation from village consultant Raf Tellis for a summary and overview of the spatial assessment methodology and comparisons. There will be a question and answer session moderated by our village manager. We will have a panel present, including Mr. Thomas Bradford as a former manager of Town of Palm Beach, that they have started this project. Now, the purpose of this workshop is to start fully informing village residents and to provide an open communication, even if all our meetings has been open to the public, and just a handful of people have been attending to all of them. And since it's such a huge project, we're going to need to work together and reach the community almost one by one to have good results. And also to have more direct information to you, the council, because many of you have been attending to the meeting. We have Brett Moss that lead us to this project and this committee, and now you're the liaison, and Mike has been attended, Luis Loredo has been attending, and I'm sure that all of you have received information, and we started last two meetings sending you a brief note of what the business that the meeting, the committee has taken. What we want to accomplish with this workshop is to share all the aspects of the project for the people to understand the purpose of the project. What are the consequences if we don't do this project, and the benefits if it's accomplished. The goal of the task force is to assist the village council and the manager to provide to the public with the most and best reliable information for the project. We have not only work the hours that we have put, but just to have this master plan. This is a masterpiece. Just to review these 130 pages with a very little letters, okay? It's no large letters. It's a lot of information. And you are the ones that have to approve this master plan. That's why I think that the workshop and the communication to the residents is very important for them to participate as the beginning part of it. I hope that this chamber is packed like as was tonight and even more, because people and the residents, they have to understand we have a lot of work ahead of us in order to provide information that the residents are going to need eventually to make their decision. And please, I urge the council that from now until the 19th, if you need any information, if you want to change anything of the draft tentative agenda that we're going to send to you, the council and the mayor, please reach Jake or the manager, because that workshop is going to be very important. It's going to be the opening for the community at large to continue the goal and accomplish this project. We work very well together, the whole community. I can assure you that in this task force, even if we have representative for every part of the community, we all work together. We are not divided between none of the places on the island. East, west, commercial, nothing. It's just one task force with one goal, to assist the council to accomplish this project. So please, if anything else you would like to have for the workshop, do it so we can be fully prepared. And since there has been a lot of information, we're going to compact our year and 2-3 months and all this book for the community and especially for you, the council. And thank you for recognizing the work that we have done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Segurola.
Mr. Mayor and council, there is one item for action regarding the task force that I would like to bring to your attention that I would ask the council to weigh in on. Technically speaking, in the ordinance creating the task force, it sunsets once the delivery of the master plan, which is going to be in about a month or two.
Or 2 years.
Or 2 years,
Right.
which it's coming up.
Right.
And I believe when it was first created, and as has been discussed in the task force, is that after the master plan is handed over to the council, that the task force become the ambassadors to the residents about this project. So I believe that we need to amend the ordinance in order to extend it, I'm guessing, just to be safe, through the end of the year, because by then we should have, you know, the public vote and all that. So I think that's something we need to.
I so move.
Well,
You just have to extend by resolution. You don't have to amend the
that's
ordinance.
the question. I think that's what we need a resolution.
Yeah, the ordinance
let's get a
provides
re-
if you want to extend the life of the committee, you can do it by resolution of the council.
Let's direct staff manager.
To just bring
can we
back
have
a resolution at the next meeting.
To be
is fine.
voted on?
That's fine. Is everybody good with that?
Yes.
I'll take it as a consensus. Next item,
Well, before you go, just on that report, excellent report and all of that, two things, and also trying to tie our actions to our minutes. I want to congratulate Councilman Moss for taking the charge of the 1 week that we put on the minutes to review the website. I read your comments and they were brilliant. Thank you. I mean, I didn't understand half of it, but I thought it was brilliant. And that's just great, you know, following up. But also, as I told them at the last meeting, and it's a very delicate thing, and it's not a criticism, it's to you that they have a very difficult task of providing, in fact, quoting you, best and most reliable information objectively and taking an advocacy. It's you know, so the website has to be kind of neutral, factually neutral. It's not easy because actually this council has not made a decision. So it's just want to get it on the record, and I know you're working on it, and it's how you express the factual presentations without necessarily taking a position at this stage.
Glad to read my emails.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else? You good? Vice Mayor? You don't have to say anything.
No, I do just have one thing. That was excellent, and I'm so looking forward to the workshop, and I actually have a meeting with one of your members before, so I can be really prepared. But I also just wanted to comment and say thank you for the comments about working together as one body, because I think it's super important that we constantly remember that we are one village. And in today's world, we don't always feel that way, but, you know, as we saw tonight, we're here together to work together for the best community we can live in for all of us. So thank you.
Okay.
next item, 401 Hampton Lane presentation.
Let's just postpone that. I'll table that for now until we have somebody to give us a presentation because mine is not going to be as good as his.
Next item is the consent agenda.
Moved.
On the minutes, just a clarification. On page 7, when you have Gomez Barker Associate, you have a fellow with a Village International Representative. Is that a typo?
No.
Is it an international representative?
I believe that their contract is, that's the type of service they represent or provide, but I can double check and I can revise it.
Sorry, what was the comment?
You see where it says on page Fausto Gomez, he talks, Cesar Alvarez, Village International Representative. I'm just a stickler for thing. I don't want people to think that we're hiring an international representative. And I think that's not what it was meant, so maybe it's just take out the word, I mean, they're all part of the group, right?
Well, they're not, I mean, they're our lobbyists, right? They're, I mean,
At the
Yeah.
state level, though.
Yeah, we
state.
don't ask them to like,
Okay, it just sounds like we have,
well, I am our Monaco representative.
I will-
In case we get into that.
I will revise it.
Okay,
yeah, just a type, it's a type.
fine. Any other things anybody want to pull?
Ma-
Everybody good? How do we want to move? I've moved the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is an ordinance on second reading of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 7, Works of Art in Public Places to reduce the maximum number of
Can I move
members
it?
of the Art in Public Places
has to read it.
Board from 8 to 7,
has to read it.
providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Go.
now move.
No, I'm just sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, yes, I'm moving. It's just, we
Second.
read it.
Oh, you want a second? Go ahead. Allison wants a second. So Put Vice Mayor McCormick as the seconder. I have public comments. Anybody who's here to speak about art in public places? Okay, I'm closing. So I have one comment to Ed's point about terms of office. You know, this ordinance was passed back in 2001. It's been around for a long, long time. One of the things, you know, we're talking about reducing the members from, it was amended when Mayor Vernon was here, it was amended to 8 from 7. There are only 7 members. There haven't been more than 7 members in a number of years, which is why the desire is to bring it down. There's also this language, no board member shall serve more than 8 consecutive years on the board. Nothing shall prohibit any individual from being reappointed to the board after a hiatus of 2 years. To your point, I think, about how we're going to discuss, I'm just putting it out there that that's really, I mean, everybody would have to be knocked off the board at this exact moment because they're all in violation. So I feel the smart course of action is to strike that for now and then come back. But I want to have a discussion about this. So it seems that Councilmember Cigarola has a comment.
Yeah. This goes to what you just said, what the gentleman who spoke during public comment said, and the 5 items that you have on the agenda. After giving a lot of thought the last meeting and meeting with the manager today and going over everything, I get the fundamental feeling, I don't want to say that our committee system is broken, but it's been neglected.
Absolutely.
I think the fair thing to do and to get more citizen involvement, my suggestion would be, it's not a problem with one committee. I think we have a problem with every single
it's
committee.
systemic. That's right.
Yes. I would suggest that we table anything that has to do with committees for this meeting and schedule as soon as, realistically possible, a workshop where we deal only with the committees. And I'll explain why a workshop. We have 11 committees. Today I put on the agenda a proposal to potentially create a 12th committee. I think that what we need to do to start fresh.
And I think there are other ideas about committees, by the way. People have come to me.
Correct. There's ideas all over the place. I think we need to look, let's say there's 12 committees. We need to look at the purpose of the committee, the ordinance enabling the committee, and the membership of the committee. So it's 3 things for each of the 12 committees. You got 36 items. I don't think that we can go over that in a council meeting. But if we have a workshop where we go over everything and then prepare an action plan for the next council meeting, then we could just start fresh, not have any misunderstandings, not have anything contrary to any ordinance, and do away with all the problems. And we could have an interview process. We can have people submit resumes. We can have the council debate the qualifications of the members and just start fresh.
I don't want to get us into our conversation items, but, for purposes of this ordinance, I appreciate that, but for the purpose of the ordinance, do I have any consensus to strike this item, or do we want to leave it there and fix it down the road?
Okay, we're striking it.
I think we ought to, we went just for mathematics. I mean, to make
Right.
it 7, which is normal,
Right.
and I agree with you in general, but I think we ought to pass this, otherwise it gets delayed.
No,
To
hold
keep
on.
it at 7. Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
my point is, I'm also adding, what I would be doing is amending the language from last time in which we we moved it from 8 to 7 to also strike section 2-142B.
The term.
2, so the term of office is out now, so that we're not in violation, and then go back and address those in a comprehensive approach through your workshop. I think that's a great idea for a workshop, but this is sort of
We're passing an ordinance
we're
that we
passing
know
an
we're not
ordinance, and
complying with.
the ordinance isn't going to comply if we leave that term in.
I'll make a motion to strike out what Mayor Davies saying.
I will second my own.
Can we just instead, because could we just say that board members shall have no term?
What's that?
Should we just say that board members shall have no term of office? Because we have an existing ordinance which sets forth kind of, and this can go to the workshop discussion, is that there is an existing ordinance that deals with committees generally, and it's in Chapter 2 of our code. And Chapter 2 of our code provides that the specific committee ordinance is supposed to dictate the duties, the term of office.
Right.
So that's why I'm suggesting, instead of strike, just say, this board member shall have no term of office, basically.
Well, how about the board members serve at the,
That's fine, too.
board members serve at the, what's the word I'm looking for? At
the will of the council. That's fine.
Everybody knew that word except me.
That's fine.
All right.
Whatever you want to do.
Why don't we do that? Would that be okay?
Yes.
All right. So with that, any other?
I apologize.
All those, we have to do a vote on our amendment to the amendment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries.
Now, any discussion further on the ordinance itself? Okay, call the question.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Petros?
Yes.
Councilmember Segurola?
Yes.
Mayor Davy?
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McCormick?
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted on second reading.
Okay,
Next item is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, supporting state legislation prohibiting the use of handheld communication devices while operating a motor vehicle, providing for transmittal, and providing for an effective date.
moved.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, did you want to move it?
Okay. I brought this forth. Thank you, Chad, for drawing up the paperwork, and hopefully you all had a chance to look at it. To me, this is step one, and I'd really like, as a community, to be an advocate for this and go as broad as possible. And on Thursday, I'm going to present at the Miami-Dade League of Cities and ask for their approval and to make it a legislative priority of their organization. Chad actually was able to put me in touch with Broward's League of Cities, and I'm trying to get them to do that. The mayor in Pinecrest is putting it before his community next week, and I've asked a few others, so I am hoping that each one of us will do that same thing. I can say put everyone in touch with me if you want. And we actually have in the audience tonight two residents who had a personal experience where they lost their son as a result of somebody who was texting in Oklahoma. It's very personal to them, so it's personal to us. And I really feel like there's a lot of support for this. Our county is by far the most populated. We have the most vehicles. We have the most registered drivers. And number 2 is Broward, and number 3 is Palm Beach in the whole state. So if we can have a broad presence within our 3 counties up there in Tallahassee, I think that hopefully we can make a difference, or hopefully we're just getting on the bandwagon where everyone else feels the same. The last thing I would like to ask is if I could have your approval to purchase a ticket to go to Tallahassee and meet with people up in Tallahassee. Our lobbyists are going to set up meetings for me, and I'd like to go there in a day, go back and forth in a day and present them with a packet, and hopefully as many people supporting it as possible. So
The
I would ask you.
The latter part, I move that it be first class.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So-
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
Councilmember Moss?
I just want to thank you for your work, and I fully support it. And I don't think you even need our approval to go to Tallahassee.
Right.
So
You're
I support
an
you.
independent council member, but we don't have to.
But it's nice
Well, but
disclosure,
it's-
yeah.
We appreciate,
thank you for letting
appreciate
me-
you asking, but yeah, you have.
And obviously
Not first
representing.
class.
No.
But
Representing.
for Thursday's speech, I have, you need to go with this resolution, so you're speaking for all of us.
Yes, well, I'll do that, yes.
we need to-
And I'll say that the resolution passed. I've been waiting for us
Okay.
to pass this resolution, and then I can
absolutely,
say
100%.
that we've done that
Okay.
and represent it. And with your discretion, I don't know if you would like to speak to all of us or to the community on behalf of your experience and your efforts before we pass? You don't have to.
You don't have to,
I'm
but
just
you're
giving
welcome.
you.
So, I mean, you've done so much for this. So I
yes.
think it's important.
Our son Patrick was killed in July of 2015 while on a cross-country bike trip building affordable housing. And I know that many of you know about him and know about his sister, who did an 8,000-mile bike ride from Alaska to Key West in his honor, and spreading the news about his life and making people aware, educating them about the dangers of distracted driving. I spent the last legislative term up in Tallahassee, not the whole term, but for all of the Senate and House meetings. It looked like it was a go. It went to the House floor, was voted 112-2, and on the final stop in the Senate, the bill was tabled and died. And it really should have gone through, and I'm back for the fight, my husband Rick and I, and we appreciate your support very much. As many people say, and we feel too, this is a no-brainer. This is taking lives, and it's taking more lives every year, and we just are dedicating our life now to road safety and honoring Patrick's life by doing that. So thank you.
No, thank you for everything you're doing.
I would like to add one important distinction. Last year, the bills were to ban texting while driving. This year, it has expanded to ban the use of a handheld device, whether it's talking, texting, or surfing the internet. So when you speak to it, speak specifically on the broader text, because that's what the bills are.
Vice Mayor?
So our residents have some things they're amazing at, and political activism, I think, is one, especially with the use of their phones, right? Sending text messages, sending emails to elected officials, trying to affect change. And as this is now an official endorsed project from the Village of Key Biscayne, when it's time that pressure needs to be put on, I'd like for us as a village to prepare, you know how different activist groups will prepare like a script or a forward this to this representative, this senator. I'd like to ask that we lend that kind of support when it's needed and get that out so that it can go through all of the WhatsApp chats and everybody can get on it. And I think hopefully we'll get a lot of support, but also get a lot more conversation and education through the community, because those of you who stood on the corner this past election and those of us who stood there 2 years before know that this is a serious problem within our own community. Yeah. You see people on their phones as they're coming either up Crandon or even rounding the corner, one hand there, one hand here. Like, we need to tell our residents it's not okay for them, and also enlist their help to affect this change. And thank you also for doing this.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
All right, can we call the question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, authorizing the village manager to execute an agreement with the Automatic Data Processing, Inc. for payroll, personnel, time and attendance services, providing for a waiver of competitive bidding and providing for an effective date.
So moved. I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, Manager?
Yes, thank you. So the village has been using ADP for payroll processing for decades. What this item is doing, it's a waiver of our process because we did not re-competitively bid. My recommendation is that we continue using the services of ADP for payroll processing. We have a good relationship with ADP. ADP has been working well for us. So I'm asking that we ratify that agreement moving forward. And we also have identified, and this is pursuant to budgeted funds, We're looking to implement the time and attendance module to the ADP system, which would basically automate time accruals and the request process for leave. It would enhance transparency and accountability for the village. It would create efficiencies in managing time accrual, and it would limit a liability that we are currently exposed to. So I recommend that we move forward with this item, and I can answer any questions.
Call the question.
Yeah, anybody have any questions? Okay, let's call it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item under reports and recommendations, mayor and council members, process for reappointments and appointments to the village boards and committees. Mayor Davey.
Okay. There's been, we had a conversation, again, I spoke to it at the beginning of the meeting. There's some confusion about boards and committees, and I provided the section of the charter which provides the mayor with the ability to name committees of the council and appoint members of the village boards and agencies with the approval of council. Okay? But we have two different types of boards. We have the special magistrates, for which I can make the appointment as needed on the basis of experience or interest in code enforcement, which is a wide. But again, such appointments shall be submitted to the council for ratification. But with regard to the pension board, the pension board is actually, we all can nominate people for that board, and we all vote on that. But I think what we really need to do is sort of determine how we're going to do that going forward. The other ones, and to the point that Ed brought up and Councilmember Laredo made, and I think a couple other people, about resumes and having them present at these meetings, I understand if we're looking for specialties, if we're looking to specifically say we want an architect for this, we want an attorney for this, we want a doctor for this, we want those things, I get that. But when we're trying to reach out to the community in mass, in the broadest sense we can, I think that's difficult to ask them to bring their CV, to come to a meeting. I mean, a lot of these people, that's a lot. We're asking them to go to these meetings and be on these committees. I'm thinking of education, the Education Advisory Board. There's parents on that who have kids, and it's tough for them to get here at night. And we can say, well, if they don't want to come here, then they really don't want it. And I don't think that's fair. People have other lives outside of being volunteers. So when I bring people to you, what I will do, again, I want you, if we say there's an opening for such and such position, let's say Land Acquisition Committee. We learned tonight that apparently there's an opening. I didn't get a chance to talk to Pat, but she mentioned that there was an opening on the committee when she was standing there. So what I would like to do is everybody kind of gives me some sort of some snippet of why you think that person should be on the committee. And I will weigh, and then I will come, but I will give you my rationale as to why I chose that person for the committee, if that's how you want to go forward. And you vote up or you vote down, and then we move on, if that's acceptable. I wanted to have that communication because I think it got lost. But the pension board, and I think what we should do for the next, I would recommend for the February 26th meeting, is we all figure out who we would like to nominate, and we're all going to be independent. And then I think the most important thing we do here is how do we determine which person gets elected? Because if all 7 of us throw somebody in and we have everybody voting one for that person, it gets a little difficult. But maybe we have, I don't want to call it horse trading up here, but we start talking about and we start trying to convince. Yeah, fine. That can be a good thing to do. That's a great idea, actually, for positions like that. That's really good. So then we can, but let's figure out a system now for the pension board so that we're not confused when we're voting for that person. Councilman
I would
Segurola?
agree with you that maybe coming and presenting may be asking for too much, but I disagree, or I see that if somebody wants to serve on the board, a board, it's not too much to ask for them to give a resume and fill out a form. Yeah, like a why do I want this job, or why am I right for this committee? I would like to create a open and transparent process where, number one, we have information about each other's nominations, because, hey, I might, nominate someone, but I realized upon seeing the resume and the application of Brett's nominee that, hey, they're definitely better than mine, I'm sorry. And also, you create a record as part of the agenda for any meetings that the public can see who's being nominated and why. And like that, it's just out in the open. And it's a mechanical, regular process where there's no, oh, gee, I don't remember what happened at that meeting. Nobody got nominated and people just sort of said, yeah, why not? There's always going to be a record if there's paper. And if that paper submitted beforehand.
paper, Ignacio.
I'm sorry?
Not paper.
Well, PDF. There's always going to be a record, and we have an open, transparent system. And I foresee it happening, for example, in the 2040 committee. We've already named 7. We have 4 spots open. We have way more than 4 nominees already. I don't know anything, I would say, about most of the people that other people have nominated. So,
But okay, and again, maybe I'm.
And we can do that ourselves, perhaps.
Yeah, because I think when I nominate people to a board, it again, I mean, and the 2040 is one where I brought everybody's people in and I took the list and I said, okay, these are the 4 who I'm going to nominate for your ratification. Okay, I'm not it's not really appointing. I'm putting, what does it say? It is appointing. I apologize. It is appointing with the approval of council. So
That's the same wording.
Yeah, it's awkward.
They're rewarding, but I think the spirit of huh?
Who worked on the charter?
I know, I blew it. I mean, we blew it, yeah.
Well, no, it's pretty clear. If the council has to approve, the council has to ratify. It's the same thing.
Right.
So, but I think if we have the paper, then we can see the qualifications of the people and have a more frank debate.
Okay.
I agree with Ignacio, and I was happy and grateful for what Ed said earlier. I think that it's important not only that we have some more transparency in terms of who people are. I would love to see more consistency, which it sounds like if we do a workshop, we can really kind of clean this up. I think a lot of our boards are underutilized and yet still working very hard. And that seems like a tremendous waste of their volunteer hours and probably more work for us that we don't actually need to be doing as volunteers also. So, but I'm wondering if having some kind of a form where it's consistent from committee to committee to make it kind of easier for people, if we could have some kind of, public access from the website so that we're not dealing with paper. It also therefore is much more accessible to all residents. And we could even perhaps build into it like, I'm interested in this committee, even though there isn't an opening now, right? If we're gonna try to clean up committees and be more consistent in terms of what are terms and turnover, if you have a list of people who are interested, you're better able to fill spots as they become available and to rotate through in a way. I think sometimes we get into where someone suddenly points out that a board someone's term has expired because people don't want them there anymore, and it shouldn't be like that. It should be because that's their term is up. So I like the idea of trying to put some systems in place to make it more accessible, more transparent, and more consistent.
Councilmember Petros?
I like everybody's ideas. I think this is probably what the discussion we're going to have in our workshop. I don't know how deep we want to go tonight.
Yeah,
And having said that, I think we should have a separate discussion about this pension board. Is that something that falls in line with these committees?
Well, that's number 4.
Or can we discuss
that? I think we're going to discuss that because we have to establish how we're going to, because that is one that the council, everybody can throw a name out on the floor. I don't say, oh, I want that. I nominate that one for appointment. That's really, we all vote on that, is my interpretation of the ordinance. And Chad, if you could speak to that.
Sure. As the mayor said earlier, not all the boards are created equal in the village. 2 boards that are different is the special magistrate board and the pension board. Those are boards that are set up by state law. The magistrate board, the council, a previous council has already determined that the mayor still nominates or appoints, and it's ratified or approved by the council because the ordinance that was adopted by the council actually says that. As it relates to the pension board, the ordinance just says that appointments are made by the council, which mimics state law. So the nomination process is silent. So it's up to the council to decide how that nomination process should occur. I think over the years, there hasn't been much discussion about that, and I think that the mayor is bringing it to the forefront now, saying, hey, let's have a discussion and let's talk about the process.
A couple.
I have missed my attorney.
A couple of comments. First of all, I always tell people that give you the idea of volunteering. I say, excuse me, volunteers. We have a very big salary, 0. So we start with that standard, and if you can't even come halfway up there, so I mean, I don't take the excuse, well, volunteer, can't show up. I was very excited by your suggestion 2 meetings ago, which has been misinterpreted now that I've been out, by committee members, they're expecting a report card from us. I thought what you meant, which I thought, wow, that's a great idea, because especially me who's new, just to see the people and have a support system from us. Some people have taken it a little bit like, oh my God, what are they reviewing us? And I think we're working on that perception, part of our communication. But I think you initiated a very healthy process. And the idea of speaking on your behalf I think we should do it. I mean, because I go out to recruit people who say 3 times no.
Right.
And so they tell, oh, you got to come and speak. I mean, I have to nominate somebody and try to convince you that that's the person. It would be embarrassing to come up. I mean, that's just a small amendment to that, but I think we ought to. And by the way, I think I sent you when the Islander that was writing, obviously they're always trying to find, my response to them is, what happened last time was a very simple misunderstanding and all of that. And of course it erupted into a situation that it's fine, it's been fixed and everything else. So, but it highlights the need that we need to have clarity. So I applaud if it's a workshop. But I think you have some appointments today, or?
I do. I have a few. Well, I have.
I mean, I'm not trying to. I'm just saying.
No, I have really 5, I guess, but the rest are going to be, review of all boards and committees. I think I'll defer to you on that point, because let's try and set up a time for that workshop.
Right.
Maybe we'll do that in April.
As soon as the manager
Well, we
believes
have no
it could be
time.
done.
I mean,
and one thing that
probably
go by vacation.
My only,
talk to me.
Weighing both sides. My concern with going forward with appointments today is it's sort of.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm sorry if I'm not suggesting that. I apologize. I was just trying to figure out where you want us to go.
Right.
I'm just.
I mean, I'll respond to that. I'll explain my rationale, and you can take it.
My concern with going forward with appointments today is it could be counterproductive, or it could be counter to what's decided by consensus is the right way to go forward in a short time at the workshop.
Well, but let me explain what we're talking about. We're talking about the 2040 vision, and we're talking about the special magistrate. We're short a special magistrate. I have had 1 person nominated to me.
For the special magistrate?
For the special magistrate.
So that's a no-brainer.
So that was kind of this. And frankly, the 4 people, there were a number of people who came out, but, these 4 people had been contacted for the 2040.
Okay.
And I know we've kind of, that's one that I think.
You don't want to drag it out.
I don't want to drag that one out.
And
And look,
I agree.
Those are the 2. Everything else, I think the pension board, I think that needs to come back to us. And I don't think there was anything else that was super pressing, but I agreed with you that I wanted everybody, I think we need to have some sort of, workshop's fine.
Why would the pension board be part of our committee workshop?
Well, no, the pension board won't be. The pension board has to come back. My thing is, I would like us all to discuss. That's one of my discussion items. We'll get to that. But my point is, I want us to have a process for voting, like as the vice mayor said, which I think is a great idea, ranking. We all submit. That one, I think we submit a blurb or a resume, whatever we want to submit for that pension board. And then we rank the people. And whoever comes out is the top vote getter from everybody. I think that's easy. If that's the way we all want to agree. But again, that's a discussion item down the road. We're kind of conflating them all because they're all similar. So I agree with you, but let's find a date now. Let's not wait and say, oh yeah, let's set it. Let's find a date. Manager, do you have any?
Madam Manager?
I would say it depends on the level of preparation that's expected. If the expectation is that we provide a package that includes, the rosters, the names, the years in service, the actual ordinances, and just provide the material with enough heads-up notice for folks to read the material, and if that's the extent of it, then we can turn that around very quickly.
Yeah,
if that's sufficient
One
for
of the problems
council.
that she's working on, I think, with the village clerk is this sort of falls in the cracks too between the two. And just even the list, the record keeping, whether or not we have resumes, we can move forward with resume or not, or waive it. But I think we need to sort of know.
I think that the key would be to figure out what the process is. For example, the form you suggested, have a simple form where people fill out.
Why do you want to be on the committee?
Right. And it could say, if you have a resume you want to attach, staple it to the form or upload online, take your pick.
No stapling. What's with you and paper?
So,
The only problem I have, but don't have to interrupt you, at least I'm trying to broaden we have such a big pie of talent, and just natural human beings, we just fall in our comfort zone, people we know. I have approached two people in other hearings of committees that I never knew that I spoke so brilliantly, and I said, excuse me, can you give me your resume? And they go, no, I don't. In fact, I send it to you to start a pool of resumes, so that what you suggested earlier, sometimes they say, let's pull up a pool rate. The guys, the guy said, well, I'm up to here at work, but I mean, it will work if we have the right spirit among us. It does, but I know we have to have.
I don't have a problem with people who are qualified not wanting to give a resume or not wanting to fill out a form. I just think that we should have a procedure.
Okay.
So that, for example, you come and you say, I have a great candidate, but he didn't want to give me a resume or fill out a form, he or she. And then everyone else here has a candidate that did provide a form or a form and a resume. Either way, we have a systematic system where we can all take into account what information we have on each other's candidates. And each candidate decides how much information they want to give, but it's on them. But for us and the public, we have a procedure, and people decide how much information they want to give. So we can, if something doesn't come down the pipe, one person can't say, oh, no, but wait, I didn't know they had to submit a resume, or I didn't know, they filled out a form. If people don't want to do it, that's great, but that's on them.
Well, and I think that to both of your points, people who want to do it, or they want to go on the website because they're interested, they just moved here, they're trying to get involved in the community, they don't know anyone, they have access that way. Those of us who know people, or you meet someone, you're like, I think you would be great for this, I'd love to nominate you, and they're busy, they only happen to be free every other Thursday at 9 a.m. and they don't have any time to submit a resume. We can do that, right? Like, I could write a letter in support of someone saying why, but then it's still consistent.
With the procedure.
Something to support.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. Why don't we, I think that's, to your point, I think, yes, what you're asking for, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's what we're looking for, right?
Yeah.
Simple form, the ordinances, all the boards and committees telling us what the status is. I know we have a rough one that went out last agenda. So if we can just.
And everything
I
is
think
published.
this one that you did, maybe a little more presentable, more like, you did that for
I actually didn't.
and updated.
Didn't the
just for the
gentleman just
mayor.
submit a form that?
Yeah, I gave it to
Yeah,
her.
it's,
Yeah, I mean, we can.
I have yours as well.
But I mean, she prepared something already.
So,
Already?
apologize.
It just needs to format.
That's the different committees. And
Yeah,
different
that's the
committees.
list of committees and the people who are on them, who the
that's from
staff
before.
liaison. Because one of the things I want to talk about, I mean, if we're going to talk about committees in the workshop, what I really want to get is some of the committees don't have a staff liaison or don't have a council liaison. And for me, when we talk about these committees just sort of spinning out there, they need somebody on council to be their connection to us. We got to keep them tethered to us because they're responding to us. They don't report to the manager. They report to us. They're our committees. And we have to be very clear about that. So that I would like to do that.
In light of that, I apologize to my colleague, Councilwoman Petros, because at the last meeting in this convulsion moments that we had, and I think I asked myself, I think, or somebody asked me to be on the Art Public Places liaison. I either said no or I don't remember. But I was all confused and everything else. I walked at the community center, one of their meetings, and I just thought it was so great. And all of a sudden, I assumed that was that person and all of that stuff. So
It's yours.
no, but I really made
There's
an
no
honest mistake.
assignment.
I only caught it on when I read the minutes. I said, "Oh my God, I just made a fool of myself."
No,
Because,
no.
So,
I don't think we had any official.
yeah, you did. It's in
liaison.
the minutes.
yeah, we have a liaison, I thought, on art, but I
You
thought.
you were put on the minutes, and that's when
Okay.
I caught it, and I called.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was those moments were a little confusing, and Jennifer was not here.
I think we should, at this workshop, I think we should determine a process.
all of it.
Yeah.
I think we should
Liaisons,
determine
everything.
the liaisons, and I don't think anything's set in stone right now. So you have another opportunity.
All
You're
right,
up
no,
at
but
bat
I mean, the
again.
ones that are time sensitive, we need to confirm right now.
I agree. Yeah.
Undergrounding and 2040, which I would move to reaffirm those two, Moss and
Magistrate,
Segurola, as their
special
liaison, because they're running,
Well,
and you're going to appoint the
Well, hold
four
on,
people.
hold on.
Special magistrate.
The special
Not
magistrate,
undergrounding.
there's only, the special magistrate is the only one they're missing a magistrate. I had one name submitted to me.
But don't feel, forgive me,
Oh, that's okay.
don't feel restricted by anyone. Some things, like when I see something on education that she sends, I back off. I mean, I just, I sort of know, or not.
Well,
So if you have somebody who's good, certainly from my point of view, appoint them whether you got a resume or not, or appointment.
Right, and I did not get a resume on the
Or,
person.
or a
who's-
name, I'm sorry.
I got a name, I didn't,
Do we have an issue? I remember, Councilmember Laredo, you came up with an idea of not having people on two boards. Is that something you
Finance.
I
wanted
think
to
we'll talk about that
discuss
at
a
the
little bit or
workshop. Let's not talk
On two
about
boards,
that
I
now.
mean.
having
is gonna
one
be
member, people on two boards
On two
at the
committees,
same
or-
time, two committees.
Right, yeah, that's the problem.
Because we have to also think about who's coming up and are they on other boards and things like that. I mean,
Well,
I don't know if
respectfully,
that's
let's
an
have
issue.
that conversation. I mean, if we want to have that
Okay.
conversation now, but that's a long conversation. Oh, I did. Okay, so we don't need to do it. Okay, I already appointed, apparently in the chaos, I did appoint the person who was nominated last time.
That's not, so it's just 24.
So I
then.
really had a bad meeting last time. We're not
No,
doing
which
that ever
one?
again. Karen Llorente was appointed as the special magistrate. I wasn't sure she'd already been appointed, but she was the only name I
Okay.
received from any of us. She's excellent. She knows the village. She's a
Oh, yeah,
business
she's
owner.
excellent. Excellent choice.
She's got some great ideas.
I just want to help you spin it better, because you spin it like she was the only nominee, and what you meant to say
Well, she's
is
an
that
excellent
she's the
choice.
greatest
Yeah,
nominee,
I didn't
and
feel
she's a
the
great
need to
person.
go outside
I
and
know,
find
I'm
somebody else
kidding, I'm
because there
kidding.
was somebody who
Okay.
had been nominated. So, but my
Let's
point
set a
is,
date.
yeah, what do you guys want to say? I was thinking April 16th or 23rd.
So the clerk and I discussed, and she'll handle this one.
So for the whatever
Is it little?
whatever date you decide, and being that the roster was created by my office and submitted during the January 15th regular council meeting agenda, and it's backup information that already exists in the record, ordinances, and everything else. I could take care of putting together a packet for the workshop.
That'd be awesome. Can you, I know, when's Easter this year?
Easter is the
April
20th.
You've been very
23rd.
helpful.
April 23rd.
April 23rd?
Is it really?
Okay, so that's important because I would assume that, is the father still here? I was thinking that,
Oh, Easter's the 21st?
The 21st, Sunday.
yeah, how can it be the
sorry.
23rd? That's a Tuesday. What are you talking about?
I was going to propose March 12th, but just to get
Oh,
it
I
out.
thought-
Is
done.
that enough?
Saturday
Do you have
was the
enough time by
22nd.
March 12th to do this? Put this together?
Absolutely.
Okay, then let's do it for March 12th. Boom, done.
Yes.
Week before our.
Because we have the
Two
March
meetings out.
4th, we have a March 4th, that's the beach renourishment workshop. March 12th, we'll do the, and then we have a council meeting on the 19th. So on the 12th.
You have
we'll do-
back-to-back meetings for 3 weeks.
That's great.
And
We
the
love
workshop
to
would
get
be,
together.
the workshop would be at 6 PM if that's
Yes.
okay
Fine,
with
is everybody
everyone.
good with 6 PM?
I don't care.
Okay, perfect, let's do
And
it.
it should be fast.
Ha, you just Kurlanchek the meeting, didn't you? All right.
Next item, Mayor.
Appointments to the 2040 strategic, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so these are the individuals, and again, I'm putting them up, I'm appointing them with your ratification. First, and then these are in alphabetical order. First is Luis de la Cruz. I think some of you know him. Good guy, long-term resident, really cares about the key, very involved in sports. I think, he cares about this. He's asked, and I think he's the kind of guy we want for those areas. And so he was nominated by a member, and I think that's great.
Excellent.
Robert DeZuglu, who I believe is still in attendance. Robert is a business owner here on the Key. He's very involved in the advocacy committee for the chamber. So he would be coming at it as a business owner. Bill Kraus, Councilmember Laredo, did you want to speak to Mr. Kraus?
Oh, it's a man that lives here. It also has a long life experience in finance and banking, and also government, Inter-American Development Bank, and one of those people who are underutilized. If we can talk him into
showing up.
You already confirmed with him? Or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the last one was Lucia Marin. She was nominated by a couple of different council people, and she's I believe she's in Ocean Club on their board. She's involved in the Condo Presidents Council. I've known her professionally. I think she's great. She has her background's in finance. She's a realtor out here. She's got kids here. I just think she's a great addition, and she was, during the election. That was one of the things. I think we all talked about it, but meeting people who wanted to be involved during the election this year, you're just reminded that people, to your point, I think if we can make it easier for people to come out of the woodwork, they will. So I think that's a great thing about that.
Can you continue your list?
That was it. That was the 4.
Well, that was the 4, but I just want to get the whole list, just so that when we're confirming it, we're going to confirm the whole 11.
Well, all 7 of the others are already confirmed.
Do we? I don't remember voting on a confirmation of
They're
it.
included in the minutes.
It's confirmed? Okay.
I'll read them. You want to read them?
We confirmed them. I wasn't
The
sure.
previous
that we
7,
confirmed
yeah.
anything. Okay. All right. No, that's fine. That's fine. If it's already confirmed,
Yeah, they're
I
already
wasn't
confirmed. You confirmed them.
All right.
I'd just like to
Councilmember
add,
Peppers?
this committee, there's a lot of people that wanted to be on it.
Exactly.
And I'm sure right now there's people that are disappointed that they aren't on it. And hopefully, I'm sure, Brett, that you will structure this in a way that whoever wants to come and participate, it's not going to be this big distinction between who's on the council and who's in the audience at these different meetings working. I think we should make a concerted effort to include everybody who wanted to be involved.
And I agree. Sorry, you make your point first.
Katie, thank you for bringing that up. And I think it's important, especially at this moment that we're approving the last members of the board, that's been part of the discussion since the very beginning, that this is a village-wide, completely, hopefully, community-engaged process with workshops, charrettes, and the whole thing, that the committee was supposed to guide the process and put together the final document, if you will, because, too many cooks spoil the broth kind of thing. It's hard to write a paragraph with 37 people. But there is absolutely, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of the previous council, and hopefully this, that this is a village-wide, open to everyone. And frankly, I hope that people take it really seriously and make the time to come out to those things, because it will be better the more input we have.
And there may be people in the audience that have specific talents that
Absolutely.
could be tasked to do something within the group.
I mean,
I think that
agree. There are areas,
that.
Pat spoke to land acquisition. And I think we need to well, as we go forward, I think Brett's got good hands on this.
You're that liaison, right?
You okay?
So you heard what we all said.
I think I'll be able to handle it, I think.
I hate to be the fly in the ointment, but I just want to bring something up. I believe the 4 nominees are talented and qualified and all that. I just have a specific issue that I want to bring up. It was sort of my understanding at the last council meeting where we discussed expanding this committee from 7 to 11 that we were looking to have certain representation from certain parts of the island. One of them being the business community, in which case Robert DeZuglu, he has a business, longtime resident in the chamber, so he represents the businesses in the chamber. Brett had nominated Tony Camejo, which I was going to nominate. He beat me to it. I nominated Lucia, which you have included in your list. I think Lucia is fantastically qualified for this, but I do have an issue with Tony not being on that list, because to give credit where credit is due, Tony has been harping about the need to revise the master plan as long as I've been paying attention to things in Key Biscayne, at least 4 years, if not longer, number one. And number two, the Key Biscayne condo president specifically had designated him in a vote as the representative from the condos. And I spoke to Lucia when I made the nomination, and she told me she was more than happy to serve on it, but she did not want to take the position as the designee of the Key Biscayne Condominium President's Council because Tony was the one that was specifically selected for that.
She's not. She's taking it. It happens that she's in the Condo President's Council, and I think that's a good thing. I'm not comfortable with us nominating people from specific organizations within this community, saying, "Oh, they represent." With all due respect, the Condo President's Council, I think they've done some really good work. They're a private entity, right? And I think we have to be very careful when we start saying, "Well, that entity deserves somebody, and that entity deserves somebody," because you start getting into a very slippery slope. So I want to be clear that I don't feel. I understand about Tony, and I will talk to him, and I'm happy to have that conversation. But I don't feel that the Condo President's Council gets a person on the 2040 Vision Committee per se. They don't get allotted a spot. I don't think that's what we wanted. That's what we intended with the 2040 Vision Committee.
You know, I have to jump in here because it brings back memories from 27 years ago, and that meeting. That what you're bringing up and his point of view, I'm 100% in agreement with him. Was lost. Was a major achievement to not have elected councilmen by districts. It was a very difficult time, and we have a wonderful community, and because of that, here, I don't count women, Hispanic, condominium, married, divorced. If you start down that road in our little group, it's going to be lethal and destructive, and clearly and counter to how we created this. So I am very strongly, as I said the last time, against any organization having automatically. I think when they spoke about a condominium people, that's a softer definition. Or business people. I, for example, don't think that the chamber should be nominating anybody. I'm going to support him because I think he's doing a good job. So I think, but the truth lies somewhere on the line. I, unfortunately, as you know, took a rather emotional reaction to Tony, who I appreciate and respect, not only by that position, but the fact that he sent out an email advocating that. And so I support him 100%. However, if you think that's important, and I think he deserves it, if he had just advocated for himself, he doesn't need another organization. Now, I'd be prepared to withdraw my nominee to accommodate that, because I think that he miscommunicated, and he blew my cool, and because it just brought back bad memories. Primal memories from founding this village. If we have, when he meant a businessman, he's looking at a business person, but it's not tied to the Rotary Club or the Chamber of Commerce or anybody else. So, but I'd be happy to withdraw if it pleases my colleagues, my person, and because I think he has contributed a lot, and we didn't communicate well. But I could be wrong. I don't know where this is all going.
No, look.
Brad, you would be helpful to.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask, Lucia, did you say Lucia is on the board of the Condominium President's Council?
Just joined 2 weeks ago. She was appointed to the executive committee 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I really didn't know it at the time, but.
Yeah, so it happened by accident?
Yeah, I realized after I talked to her that she,
I mean, going back to the process, I respect the way the charter is, that the mayor is going to make his appointee. I would say go ahead and make what you feel is who you think should be on the board, and we can vote it up and down and see which way it goes. But I respect what your decision is going to be.
I mean,
but I mean, let's help him a little bit, because we can't put all the crap on him either. He's going to have to make the. I mean, you know, we got to help him when he's,
You know, if you were to, if Bill Kraus comes off, you know, I understand. I mean, look, this was not an easy choice for me.
No,
it wasn't easy to sort of navigate all the people that, look, they're great people. They're all, Tony, I agree with you. He's done a lot. I was disconcerted by his speech that night. That really was. And then the email there, you know, it was, I don't want us, and I would be appointing him as Tony Camejo, not as Tony Camejo, president of the Key Biscayne Condo President's Council. I have no, and I respect the work they do at the Condo President's Council, but I want to be clear, this is not an appointment of that entity, it's the appointment of that person.
I completely agree with you, and I completely agree with you about the slippery slope of going into condos versus houses and all that.
Or Yacht Club needs a member,
Correct.
and this place needs a member, and you get,
For me,
6 foot people and 5'3" people and women with blonde hair and men with balding.
the reason I was going to nominate Tony before Brett was, honestly, it wasn't, yeah, in my mind, it was like, okay, we get representation from the condos, and he's the head of the organization. But to give credit where credit is due, the first person I ever heard harping about the need to update the master plan was Tony and Don Ellisberg. There were the two that for 6 years at least, if not more, have been getting out there saying we need to update the master plan, we need to update the master plan, and made it an issue in every election since then. So for me, he's been one of the people who's been paying attention the most to that issue the longest that I've seen.
Well, if the mayor, and I don't know how to proceed here, and or Brett will take as a helpful thing that I withdraw a bill, that's perfectly fine. I'll deal with it later. I think we need to move, we're together tonight, so let's just, you know, if it's your.
Then I appreciate that, and then we'll put Tony Camejo in and take Bill out. We'll use Bill for, I think there's an investment board coming up and everything else, so I will. You know, I know Tony.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay. You guys have to ratify them.
I move your recommendations.
Okay.
I second.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item.
Oh, nice.
I don't believe we need to, well, appointments to the Board of Trustees.
The board, pension board, what, I think we talked about it. We're all going to come, we're going to submit, we'll all rank whoever submits, and we're going to do this by the February 26th meeting. So what I would like is that everybody submits by the 19th. Sorry.
Before we do submissions, let's have a brief discussion on what we're looking for an appointee of the pension board.
Great, but let's start by understanding what our outlines are. I want everybody to submit. If you have somebody, let's submit them by the 19th. That way we have time to you know, think about them on our own, maybe connect with those people. If you want to reach out to them, you're more than welcome to. I feel it's the pension board, you know, and so if you want to reach out to those people, I think that's what we should be doing, and then we'll vote on it on the 26th. Is that okay with everybody?
With all due respect.
Yes, ma'am.
Should the council members be submitting resumes or not?
Yes,
yes, no, for this board member, yes, absolutely. It's essentially, everybody gets to nominate somebody.
I just want to clarify.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For the pension board, everyone gets to nominate. They send it to the clerk, and that's your nomination. Please don't nominate too many people, okay? You know, I'd rather that everybody nominates one. I mean, if you have a couple of if we have some overlaps, I think that's okay too. You know, seven nominations is going to be tough.
You know, Mayor, just to help you a little bit, and I always get in trouble for being so direct, but also when I get an email from colleagues saying these 7 people are interested, I mean, I kind of need to know who you want, you know, or.
Well, again, the pension board is.
Right. I think to your point, I mean, let's do our homework and give you one name for each of us.
Right, I would agree.
Right.
Yeah, no, each one of us, the 7 would come from each of us submitting.
No, I understand, but on other experiences that people list people who have shown an interest, and I see. It's difficult. I know it's difficult to pick up.
No, we're going to have to pick who we want to submit, and we submit. To Katie's point, let's talk about what we're looking for in the pension. We have, and again, this goes to your whole thing with the workshop. We've got people on there who've been on there for a couple of years, and the terms are you're supposed to, if you look at the ordinance, again, learn something new every day.
We have 2 appointments.
We have one person up there, and I believe, I forget how long they're supposed to, how long do the trustees on the pension boards serve? Do you remember?
2 years.
2 years?
It's 2 years.
So I think we have to look and see where everybody is.
Can we have a blanket resolution to eliminate term limits on all the boards until we address this issue?
No, I don't think we can with
No?
that one especially.
No, that's state mandated.
Yeah,
That's
a
state
mandated.
law. Okay,
But, so
so
anyway,
we're in
but let's
violation
talk
of
about
state law?
Katie's point, because I think we want to decide, how do we want to, what are we looking for in the person on the board?
What's the role of the pension board? Chad?
In non-legal terms.
The role of the pension
Yeah,
board?
what's their
Well,
goal?
our appointees,
Administer the plan.
right.
I mean, that's what it says.
Okay.
It says the Board of Trustees is designated as the plan administrator.
One of the questions that had come up that I was wrestling with is somebody who has experience in pensions more important, or is it someone who has experience in investments that can help with the returns of the pension itself? And you don't have an answer. That's for us to discuss.
If you ask, what is the qualification for being president of the United States, would you have an answer?
Not right now.
Actually, you might
So you have to have a general.
Well, I mean, are we
only have
looking
2.
more for someone with experience in pensions and
Yeah,
public
or
pensions
finance.
versus private pensions, or finance?
That's how I looked at it, and that's the person I nominated.
Finance.
Because 2 are already
The fire and police.
comprometidos, they're already, representing the union or whatever.
Right.
And then the 5th one, which is picked by the 4. So the 2, I mean, I just think anybody who has, banking experience, finance experience, investment experience, or a combination of that in business and or possibly pension. But I don't think it should come from the public sector experience.
It should be private.
I think so, because you already have 2, if you look at the numbers, that are, going to be public sector employees. I don't know, but that's just.
And your rationale of going into the private sector is because what are they going to bring versus the public? I'm just asking you to educate
Sure.
me.
No, I think that the private sector people in general are, in finance, are more in tune with the broader issues of finance and economics and investments and than more narrowly someone who has a lot of experience on pension fund, particularly public pension funds, and made a career out of that. That it looks great on a resume, but it limits the experience. So in a sense, people who have bounced around in the good sense of the word in terms of moving up in the private sector are, I think, the best quality. At the end of the day, it's about judgment, and it's about numbers. So you have to have somebody who understands numbers.
Okay.
And so that's my take on it.
So I don't entirely agree, right? The pension board has financial advisor paid. And I do feel that way to the extent of one of the seats from the village. I think there would be a benefit of someone who really, really knows pensions and who's representing us, not their own sort of self-interest, right? And I think especially, some of the problems we've seen possibly wouldn't have arisen had someone been there who kind of understood more what was going on. That's my 2 cents.
Okay.
Right.
So what are we are we all going to come with what we think we want on
I think maybe we preface what the person has,
Yeah, no,
brings to the
absolutely. You're
table,
presenting
whether
your
it's one or
nominee.
the other,
Correct.
and then we can have the discussion
have
when
the
the names
discussion.
come up.
That's right. Okay.
All right.
Next item is appointments to the Special Magistrate Board, but that was already addressed.
That was addressed.
The next item is undergrounding utility task force ordinance. Councilmember Segura,
Already
I
done.
We
believe
talked
that
about
was
the
done.
resolution coming back.
Next item is performance evaluation process for charter officials. Councilmember Petros.
All right. Hopefully you all saw and reviewed the forms that are before you. I've met with our clerk, our attorney, and our manager, who are our 3 charter appointees, trying to come up with a system to begin annual evaluation. And this probably needs more tweaking, and I also have worked closely with the Director of Human Resources, which I want to thank him for his help and expertise in trying to come up with a format. And I am presenting this tonight for you to see. I would like to ask that at the next meeting, we bring it up to approve, to begin this process, and we have 2 weeks to give comments, I think, to the general people through the clerk, and that we will have it back on our agenda for approval, and I can tweak it in whatever way. I think what I thought was I could bring it forward with people's comments, kind of redlined in the form, and then we can decide whether, as a group, we want to adopt those changes or not. And then my recommendation would be, after we go through this process the first time, that we then have another tweaking, because I'm sure once we actually implement this, there will be concerns or problems that come up. I just don't know what they are. So any discussion?
The action is to move your item.
It's not to adopt this tonight. It's to discuss it and to hopefully put it for an approval in the next meeting.
And why do we have to have this intermediate step? Why can't we do the second part today?
What's that?
What,
Provide our comments now?
Well, because,
or to move it?
I mean, I want to talk about it generally, but if you have comments directly, you certainly can provide your comments now.
No, I'm saying in terms of an action, more action-oriented. What action do you
Why we
need?
can't just approve it tonight? I mean, why don't we have a discussion on the process and the fact that it's bringing, this would be a new process for our village. So people may want to speak to that also.
Yeah, I mean, I'm.
You want to study some? No, I'm
You
listening.
talk to your notes. I guess I want to understand how this would go. You know, the objectives, as you were, I get that. There's a self-assessment, complete evaluations and provide them to Human Resources, Director of Human Resources, calculates averages, and the objectives, set by council at a public meeting based off charter appointee provided recommendations. So we're setting their objectives based on their input. Is that correct?
The way I see it, and maybe the wording's not great, is
No, I'm just seeking clarification.
there's each person will do a self-assessment, and they will have their own objectives. And then each one of us will do an assessment of the 3 appointees. And then we will have objectives that we would like to see for each one of those individuals.
Okay.
This is the most difficult part, because we can't obviously ask someone to do, we could potentially end up with 27 or 25 objectives. And we can't ask anybody to do that amount of objectives. So the idea was to take into consideration what their interests are in growth and development over the next year, or areas they want to focus. And if those are aligned with ours, then the appointee will have their own in their self-assessment.
Let me
You're
just.
confused. Yeah.
All right, Councilmember Laredo.
No, I'm just English.
Yes.
We're talking about the clerk and the manager.
And the attorney.
And the attorney.
Oh, we got to include him too? It's all right, it's all right.
Vice Mayor?
So I wonder if there's a way to put a step in here where maybe it's an as needed or as wanted sort of one-on-one meeting to discuss
absolutely.
that stuff, and especially things like the objectives or the evaluation. While I fully respect maybe it is, and to me it feels like it's 1 a.m. I get up at 5, so I don't know. But
I'm sorry, that's not clearly identified here, but each person, each one of us can make individual meetings and sit down and have that conversation. Or you may choose not to. It's up to you, basically.
Like, you're a rock star, I don't need it. Or I want to talk to you
you've
about
got to fill out the
specific things.
form.
Right, of course.
And if someone chooses not to fill out the form, we can't force somebody to, and then the numbers would be representative of the forms that get turned in.
I think my question or like uneasiness is more about this objective set at public meeting. Obviously, everything that we do needs to be in the sunshine, needs to be a matter of public record. But when you are dealing, it's atypical to do someone's performance evaluation on TV. So the closer we can get to feeling good about where we are when we bring it to a public meeting is kind of a priority for me. I think, as I'm sure it is for all of us, is better for the employee if they're getting some kind of constructive criticism. We may be more apt to be open. They may be better able to receive it, right, when you're doing it one-on-one. So I'm glad that, although I didn't see it, that's part of it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, as
And
we
I'll
sometimes
include that
do,
in the wording.
thank you,
I'll make
as
that
we
change.
sometimes do through email, sort of share our comments, or I went to this meeting and here's what happened. I wonder if maybe that could help us get to a more finalized set of objectives when we get to that final step. It's
I
still
would
public
think-
record, but
Yes, and keep in mind, this whole process is meant to help us and help the appointees, or the manager, the clerk, and the attorney. Number one, understand where we are as a group so that they don't feel like they're answering to all 7 of us individually. So we have ownership of a defined set of goals or objectives, however you want to say that. And then also that they get positive feedback. This is meant to help both sides. And I think that's the spirit by which we should be doing these evaluations. And if there's things that you would want to see, we don't want to be having a public hashing. That is absolutely not what this is for. So the idea is to hone down those objectives so that they come before us in a public meeting as, yes, we approve these, and everybody's had input.
Brett.
So I want to thank you for doing this, because I think this is a lot of work, and I think you did a lot here. You made it very clear. I don't know if I'm going to be ready to approve this so quickly, because I think this discussion needs to continue a little bit. When we're talking about feedback, I find that feedback is much better when it happens quicker, rather than waiting a whole year to give the feedback of the suggestions of where we need to see improvement. Maybe this should be on a quarterly basis where we can just fill out a form, give it to them, or even sit with you one-on-one, and we can fill out a form if you want to keep it documented of how we think you're doing. I think the goals and objectives should be probably done, and I think you actually mentioned it, maybe in the budget meeting or in the strategic plan meeting, of what do we want to see from these 3 individuals and what they want to do. So it's not such this formal setting goals and objectives from like an employee standpoint, but maybe more of a strategic standpoint of what we want to see. So, for instance, the clerk's office, what do we want to see strategically this year come out of it? And that's, I think, a very good area where we can put this in. And then yearly, I think we can do an overall objectives rating, this sheet, and that could be tallied up, averaged out, and it gives a number, and that would be what will be associated to the raise. And I think that, of course, you can give numbers 1 through 5. I'm not a big fan of that, because it all depends on who's giving those numbers and what those numbers really mean. Some people might see a 3 as good, and other people see a 3 as horrible, right? It's really difficult when you're using these kind of arbitrary numbers. But I think in the end of the day, what we're trying to determine is, what type of raise do we want to give based on the performance of these individuals? And I think that, for me, it could just be an overall rating, and the numbers correlated to what the raise would be. So we can see, a 5 is going to give them a $5,000 raise, and a 1 would give them a $1,000 raise, and that's based on what we think the performance is. And that could get averaged over everybody at the time that we're finalizing the budget to see what the merit adjustment is going to be.
Well, that's a big part of this, and there's actually a scale already in place, which I meant to submit with this and didn't, and I'll include it, but it's something that the village already uses.
Mm-hmm.
And it says if you score between a certain range, this is what your merit increase would be, and it goes, across the board. So that's part of this, and that's kind of what that numerical ranking goes into, and that's why it's tied to the budget, so that we can have backup for merit increases that we're putting in the budget.
Exactly, and sometimes, the numbers really are something that's more tied to that type of stuff, because I have employees, I give them performance evaluations. They go back to their desks. If I give them a 5, a 3, a 2, a 1, a 4, they don't know what to do with that. It's like, what does that mean for them, right? They know that maybe not doing something, but the feedback, I really like the idea of the notable strengths, the opportunities. That's where they're really going to improve and know what they're doing well. I think the numbers for me just really comes down to how much we're going to adjust their merit, the raise for that year, and what do we want to do?
And I think that scale would be very helpful in that regard.
Yeah,
So that's great that
I'll
it
make sure
already
the
exists.
scale is in there. To a couple points that you raised, I think that looking at those things that are in those different paragraphs for establishing a number help you think about strengths and weaknesses.
Sure.
So it does dovetail in there.
I agree.
Into there. And then the purpose of having the two pieces was one is growth opportunity and objective setting, and then the other is looking at more of the standard requirements of the job.
So is this going to come back as an action item next
Yes.
meeting? Okay, let's do that.
So I will include, is there any other comments that I should take into consideration to modify this? And I'll bring it before you again. And I also want to thank Jennifer, or Jenny, sorry, Andrea and Chad for helping me and being so open to the process. I know it's an uncomfortable position to be in, and you've been very helpful working through this with me. So thank you.
Next item, condition of swales, Mayor Davey.
Okay, well, I live on Ocean Lane Drive, full disclosure, okay? And we have had, our swales along Ocean Lane Drive have looked like refuse piles for quite a while. So I have gotten a lot of comments from fellow residents when I'm walking up and down the street and complaining about the drainage. And so I started looking at other swales in different parts of the community. And, you know, Fernwood is the village, so I was thinking everything was a village. But in fact, what I found out, what the manager informed me, was that my association is responsible for the swale in front of it. And the KB 100, which is the next building up, and the Palms, we're all responsible for the swales. We have to figure something out because our swale problems are caused by drainage issues on Key Biscayne. I mean, that's what it is. We get a light rain, it fills in. There's certain areas that it just fills in with water and it doesn't go away. So I just wanted to bring it up. I want my people out there on OLD to understand that I'm looking out for them, and that we're going to try and we may form an association of folks on Ocean Lane Drive because we've got to find a solution for this.
Got the GD and
we got the
OLD.
OLD.
Be the president of the association?
So I'm going to be the president of the association, and then I will come back here and do all sorts of things for them. But no, I just want to bring it up. The manager did educate me on what our responsibilities are, but I did want to say I left it on here simply because enough is enough. We have to figure out a problem for it. It's bad, and now you know we're going to get into mosquito season in another month and a half, 2 months, and it's just not fun. So that was that. And actually, I apologize because the manager's report's supposed to be done at 9 o'clock.
I had something.
Oh, the vice mayor wanted to say
Do you
something.
mind if I say something about swales before we get off the subject? I had a resident talk to me about the condition of swales as well, actually on the other side of Crandon, and he had real concerns about the way people are using their swales and the inability for people to be able to park on them, and just some questions about what people can do and can't do on the swales and the enforcement of those regulations. Like there's a new mailbox that looks like a wood wall right up at the street edge. Every time I drive by, I feel like someone put a dresser out for bulk trash, but I don't think that it's compliant. And so if we could maybe, for our next meeting, maybe get a report about what people can and can't have in the swales and what the rules are, and maybe we could work on that a little bit.
Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, I think when the mayor brought this issue up, we spoke about his neighborhood in particular, and we had the opportunity to drive around, and when we were there looking at it, there were some utility vehicles doing work. So administratively, I've worked with our Public Works Department. We do, in fact, issue Public Works permits. And for the work that we witnessed where the utility truck dug up your swale, there was an active permit. So the village has contacted the contractor. The contractor is obligated to do the restoration work. So I think there's a combination of education, of getting the information out. I think looking at enforcement is something that we'll also look at, and then also enforce and administratively how we handle the public works permits. So I think there's a couple of lessons learned here. So thank you.
And who was the on-site inspector who caught them destroying the grass?
The three of us.
Me?
We were all together.
No, he had already gone home.
Well, he
And
had already told me about the issue.
And we went and, no, the guy who that we
the
went and
utility
approached
worker
and
in
you
the
pull
middle.
out your card.
And we took a picture of it and sent it to
Yeah.
Public Works, so
All right, well, I appreciate it.
we
It's a
did
group
that.
effort.
Yep.
Okay, manager's report.
manager's report.
Sorry.
Lime
I'm
bike?
taking your job, Jenny. You want to take mine? We could trade? You sure? Okay, what's that?
So
Yeah, signs are
Lime
next,
Bike is the village's service provider for the shared bikes that you see throughout the village. So on January 29th, the village received an email from the Lime Bike representative essentially saying that Lime Bike is transitioning its fleet from bike to scooters, and they are requesting to terminate the bike sharing agreement. They initially set a date to terminate on February 3rd. We reviewed their contract. There is no provision for them to terminate. Notwithstanding, the agreement that we have with them only goes through April. In discussing with staff, I think what we don't want to have happen is that these folks pull out and that we see a decrease in the level of service and that we start experiencing complaints, and we didn't want that to happen. So I wanted you to know that Lime Bike is going in this direction. What we're trying to work on is an agreed date with Lime Bike that gives us some time to notify the community. So this is one opportunity that we can notify the community that this is happening. We'll also send out constant contact and social media to let folks know. But I think within probably a week or two, Lime Bike will be out. I think the two reasons that I understand that they're pulling out. One is a business decision. I think in the industry for the ride sharing, in particular with the bikes, their vision was that each municipality sort of buy into this program and there be an overarching support from the county. And if that hasn't come to fruition, so I think from a business perspective, they're pulling out, and for whatever other business perspective reasons, the scooters seem to be the direction they're going. Previously, the council had discussed shifting from bikes to e-bikes. If you notice, that never happened. They didn't sign that agreement, and now we know why. So that's my update, and I can take any questions.
Are they providing an option with the scooters?
They are. They are.
Okay.
If it's something the council...
It's an option that they may be interested in, or they just don't want to be in Miami-Dade County at all.
They're shifting to scooters, so they are going to stay
Okay.
in the scooter business. My understanding from recently, we had a discussion about the scooters, and my understanding from council was that the direction I got was that wasn't safe, and we wanted to stick with bikes and e-bikes. If you wish to revisit that discussion with them, we can do that.
Yeah, I think the issue why Lime Bikes is here is because the issue was traffic, and getting people to use an alternative transportation other than a car or even a golf cart, so they're not taking up parking and traffic. And that's a big issue, especially with the business community as well. They're having a lot of problems with that. So if we're not going to have Lime Bikes, we need to either look at another bike company or look at another mode like a scooter or whatever is available. I am concerned about the dock list, and I know that that's probably the way it's moving, but we want to kind of see how this can be controlled, especially if we go into scooters. It might be a much more difficult thing that, how that could be if.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we were going to.
Well, you
if,
just suggest, it was.
I thought I said if, but if we were going to go in that direction, we would need to know how is this going to be controlled, because this is a little bit more than a bike, and I think that was one of the big issues with a Lime Bike. So it'd be interesting to talk to them if we want to look at that.
We're talking about powered, right? We're talking about powered scooters.
Powered scooters, yes.
Yeah, I'm not a proponent of that for Key Biscayne. But that, if you want to bring it as a discussion item or you want to bring it as an action item, we can talk about it. I'm not a fan of those things. It's like the Segways. Remember the Segways back in like 2007, 2010? That would have been a nightmare. But anyway, okay. Appreciate that. Anybody else? Okay.
Next item is the update on building department.
So on Friday, February 1st, I accepted the resignation of Mr. Sergio Ascunce, who is our Building, Planning, Zoning, and Code Compliance Director. We have a transition plan in place. In the interim, I have taken the department and broken it into 3 separate divisions. There's the Code Compliance Division, the Building Division, and then Planning and Zoning Division. For the time being, Chief Press will supervise the Code Compliance Division. The Coordino Group is one of our continuing services providers for engineering and planning services. I met with them this afternoon. They're going to give us a proposal on how to staff the planning and zoning function, and they're also going to provide oversight with regard to the building division activities in collaboration with Mr. Jake Osman, our Public Works Director. So I think we've got a good transition plan in place. My expectation over time is, my goal over time is to be able to absorb some of the functions with the existing resources to the extent that we can. In the interim, we'll be filling in the transition as I described. The main projects that I'm monitoring very closely are the comp plan amendment, which I will be personally taking on directly, which highly correlates to the 2040 strategic planning vision process. Coordino Group already has the contract to do that work, and that's a very important process that I'll be liaising personally. The CRS, the Community Rating System update, so basically every 5 years for floodplain management purposes, we have to go through this process. There are staff members within the building department who have handled this year over year, and I'm comfortable that they can get us through this year's CRS process. And then the final major issue that we're looking at is the implementation of the permitting system. In the police department budget, there was a $20,000 allocation for IT support to complete the implementation of their CAD system. Thankful to report that the CAD system has gone live. It is fully implemented without any glitches or failures. So we're reallocating that $20,000 to support the implementation of the permitting system. Once we get a better handle on where we are and what measures we can use and what milestones we can use to measure the implementation of that system, I can report back. Needless to say, there will be a little bit of a delay. The last report that I had from Mr. Ascunce was we were hoping to go live sometime in the summer of this year. I will reassess that, and we may or may not be able to meet that deadline, but that system is mission critical, and we'll work toward that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Next item, Mayor, is fiscal year 2018-2019 quarterly budget report to the council.
Thank you. So staff was directed at a previous council meeting to prepare a quarterly exception report. Interestingly, after that directive was given, before that directive was given, I had been working with staff on a couple different versions of that report, and the auditors came over to my office and said, we had been thinking about doing this exception report. I said, this is what we have, and they took a look at it, and they were very happy with the way that we were going. I've provided the report here. Mr. Chris Wallace is our interim CFO who has been working diligently on this. In essence, we take each fund and we call out the revenues and the expenditures, and we identify any discrepancies compared to budget. Two things I'm looking at moving forward. We're working on developing a budget projection system so that we can look at year to date to be an indication of how we're performing for those expenditures that are recurring in nature and routine in nature. However, there are decisions, there are contract awards, there are management decisions that are made throughout a year that will also drive our budget. So as time goes forward, this report will be modified to also include a budget year-end projection that reflects some of the decisions that we've made. And if there are any questions, or if you'd like me to go through in more detail, Chris and I are available to walk through any particular questions.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no, thanks for putting it together. It was excellent. I was happy with it. I think you did a great job. I appreciate all that you and Chris are doing to get us rated.
Thank you.
Last item on the manager's report is a naming of 401 Hampton Lane Park. Madam Manager.
Thank you. So 401 Hampton Park, we received a grant for the park. And the grant requires that we place a plaque in the park that says that the park was in part funded by the Florida Communities Trust. Staff brought this to my attention. There's an opportunity here to name the park. Some ideas have been discussed with the council as to, perhaps a contest to name the park, or, there are some different considerations in naming the park. So we're seeking direction on how you want to proceed with naming the park.
And a clarification.
Could we have the presentation?
Yeah.
There's a
After this, but I'm in favor of sort of a contest, but, I think that would be kind of cool to have the kids around Key Biscayne submit their ideas and have the ceremony of the name. Oh, sorry. Have the ceremony where we do name the park, have all the kids there, photo, whatever, something like that. I like that idea.
The thing I wanted to clarify is that, if I understand on the council left, is that we don't have to name the park for the purposes of the legislation. We don't have to give thanks for the park. Is that correct?
My understanding, right, so I asked the same question. So what if we said this park was funded by? So I think there's an opportunity, and you can choose to take it, or we can just say this park.
I visited. It was wonderful presentation when that they did the family with.
Sure. Well, they're going to give a presentation
and I've been
in a
back
couple minutes.
twice, and I thought this is Serenity Park. I feel serene there, but I think the idea of a
name.
Huh?
Enter into the contest.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The contest idea.
You got to go back to school, though.
The contest idea is a great one.
I like the idea,
So
yeah. I think that'd be
we'll
kind of
move
fun.
that.
So you want to put something together and get us some
Contest.
idea? Yeah,
Is
contest.
contest for only children, or is contest for
Yes,
anybody?
you're not involved, Brett.
I'm a child at heart, so I can
Yes,
put it
exactly. No, I think it should
like
be
it.
kids. Why not? Just have the local school, all the local schools have them.
You might get like Marshmallow Park or something like that.
Do we have a date by which we need to have the park named?
There's a date by which we have to have the plaque up. We'll circle back. I believe there is a timeline that we have to have the plaque in.
Let's
Because it would be really nice to have an opening with a plaque
and a ribbon
No,
cut.
absolutely.
and all
Everything
of
at the
that.
same time. Let's make it a big to-do.
But in the not too distant future.
Right, absolutely.
But that's a good point, because if the time, I'm not sure how quickly we could turn around a survey, unless it's very, we post something on our website, SurveyMonkey, submit, something kind of informal, and just get some names that we can circle back, maybe even at the next meeting.
The next meeting in
I
2
always
weeks?
see problems with that, because people are going to say, oh, they didn't know about it, and they wanted to, I don't know.
So
It makes me worry.
how about this? In the event that the timeline is too tight for the contest
Then we'll have to revisit the solution next
on
meeting.
26th, then
Yeah.
we'll make a decision then. Okay.
We'll make a decision then.
So we're not even going to make a decision tonight
Serenity Park.
on a
I feel
contest?
serene there.
I like a contest, but.
If
what
possible.
We have to
manager's
see if we have
saying
enough
is
time.
If we have to get the plaque up by a certain time,
We should still have the contest, because we can always add the name
Change it.
to this
Or
plaque.
swap out the plaque.
And then we can have the naming and we can have the opening.
that's
Because-
fine.
I
Yeah,
like the
you can have
name.
2 openings.
I like the name The Park. Capital, like not the park, but The Park. Yeah.
So, yeah, let's
They
go
you.
forward with let's
Some
figure out how
emphasis
fast
on
we
it.
can. But I agree with his point. I want the schools to be involved. I want all of them to understand, across. Let's
How
reach
about
out
a
to
month?
the schools.
Can we do it in a month?
What they do in
Month's
this,
tough because then you're into spring break. Well, no, sorry, the
No, you're
beginning of
not.
March. No, we're fine. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
yeah, if we want all the kids involved, I think the best would be to go through the schools, even though there
Absolutely.
are some kids that don't go to schools on the Key, but, they put the little folders at home, and we can have a one little page saying, name the park, this is where you go, and a contest, maybe that'll work.
Okay, so K8 and Mast?
Kate, Mass, St.
But
Agnes.
you also have St.
Community
Agnes,
School,
yeah.
Presbyterian, St. Christopher's.
All Key Biscayne
All of them.
schools.
Okay.
Let's hit them all.
We have our March 12th date for the workshop on committees. It seems like a good time to maybe be able to pick a name. That's 5 weeks from now.
Okay. Well, why don't we do it the March 19th meeting? That way it's the meeting. I don't want to gum up the workshop with anything but the workshop.
Okay.
Okay?
A week later.
March 19th.
We'll target that.
All right. All right. Now, without further ado, the Simon Clan.
Hi, thank you.
Mayor and Council, Manager, thank you for accommodating our schedule. Steve Simon, 335 Harbor Lane. First, we want to thank the village for the last several years of allowing us the opportunity to build this park, to do something very unusual, to see something through from conceptual design. Brett and Ariel. When that was done, we actually never thought that we would be involved in the construction. Our work was done, we went home, and to have been called several weeks later by village administration was really thrilling. So we are appreciative of that. The park is very near completion. And there is a short list of things that we recommend that we believe need to be done to really finish this park as envisioned. And the one thing that is on this list, the number one item that's on this list, is something that's going to be addressed by Ariel and Brett, and that has to do with drainage and grading. And before I turn it over to them, I want to acknowledge Mauricio Salazar, who's in the audience. He's a longtime Key Biscayne resident, and he's been our structural engineer with this project as a volunteer. Thank you, Mauricio.
So, based upon input from the community prior to the design phase, it became apparent that the residents wanted the park to provide an ambiance of tranquility and a gathering place for neighbors, and to include a significant botanical component. We had a small area in which to achieve this goal. Brett and I visualized that the plantings should be selected and located in such a way that visitors' eyes would naturally be drawn towards the back of the park. This in turn would serve to make the limited space of that single-family home lot appear larger. And while the plantings along the two streets would make the park feel accessible from the outside and intimate from the inside. A wide range of plants are in the park to showcase the possibilities that our subtropical climate can support. There are many native plants in the park to support our native fauna, as well as many exotics or plant immigrants, as Dr. David Fairchild liked to call them. The exotic plants help to educate the public about global tropical plant regions and help to conserve the biodiversity of tropical plants. We have some labels in the park that share the scientific and common names and the plant's origin as a form of continuing self-education for the public. We've conducted educational sessions and botanical tours of the park over the course of its construction. I'm excited to announce that we're offering upcoming classes at the park. I'm offering one this coming Saturday from 9 to 11 a.m., February 9th, Flora in the Garden. And 2 weeks later, Brett's going to be teaching botanical drawing on February 23rd from 9 to 11 in the morning. Those classes are open to everyone in the community and are free, so we hope that everyone will attend. The park is composed of many living, breathing, and from time to time dying organisms. As such, it can only look its best if it is continually maintained and nurtured. I want to draw your attention to this photo. This was taken at the January 15th grant check event. You might notice that within the circle of people or around the circle of people, there are patches of brown in the grass. I noticed it when we were there, and it's actually called brown patch or large patch, and it's caused by Rhizoctonia fungus. My dad thought it would be a good idea if we got an outside consultant to verify. So we consulted with Professor Brian Unruh of the University of Florida, and he responded saying, "From the images, it appears that you have accurately diagnosed the disease. Large patch and brown patch are both caused by Rhizoctonia solani. His recommendation is that drainage must be addressed. Increased surface drainage through proper grading and subsurface drainage is often required." With that, I'm going to turn it over to my brother.
With our new manager, Andrea, and Director of Public Works, Jake, we're looking forward to addressing some of these issues and resolving these last few improvements. And which include, most importantly, the grading and installation of a drainage system. I think they're both essential for the long-term success of the landscaping and for the community's ability to use the green space in the center of the park. I mean, if you go out there right now, it's very wet ground and a little bit unpleasant to walk on. But the ground can be shaped in a way to drain the water away from this, from certain areas, and French drains can be installed to drain water on the site. And I want to have Mauricio come up to speak a little bit more to that solution. And as my dad mentioned, Mauricio has been volunteering for a long time with us, doing the structural engineering of the pergola, and now making drainage recommendations.
Okay. Thank you, Red. I think, based on past experience on different projects here on Key Biscayne on residential drainage, we need to install about between 60 to 70 feet of French drain. Okay? That would go, we will have to find a place to put it. And I think that will solve the problem. We cannot legally, we cannot drain to the street. Okay, so we have to maintain all the rainwater within the project and drain it as quickly as possible.
How deep would the French drain be, you think?
4 feet, 5 feet.
5 feet?
Yeah. The final would be with the geotechnical report. Okay.
Can I ask about the drainage issues? Is it pooling in certain spots, or is it like an issue with, like, does the sprinkler system have a moisture detector on it like some do, or?
Maybe Ariel, you would
Ariel.
I don't know specifically what the irrigation system has. I would assume that it has that because by law it has to. It's more than just that it's being, it's more than an irrigation problem. Drainage was something that is.
So generally, the key is not it doesn't have a good drainage subsoil. Okay, so that's why we have to do the French drains.
But it is pooling in the central area, in the grassy area, which would be where a lot of people would gather. So I think with a French drain, it would really help the water percolate through the ground.
And the good news here is that, as Brett mentioned, we're working now with a new team on board with Andrea, with Jake, Javier, Anna. We're working closely with the village to come up with a solution and implement it, and we can, we'll work and resolve this problem and come back with if we need to address it on council level or if we just work directly with staff. But in terms of the disruption of the park, having spoken to Mauricio and Brett, this is only going to involve the grassy areas. This is not going to involve disrupting the existing landscape or bocce court or pergola around it. It's, I don't know if you can confirm that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
About how long do you think it takes to address and restore?
Quickly, once it's a matter of
about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe,
Okay.
maybe 4 weeks at the most.
But I think you guys are going to have to come back with a proposal, right? Or with the manager, and
Correct, the
we'll make
manager,
a.
So that was what I was getting at. I think that we need to do is delegate the authority to the manager to get into these details.
Yeah.
And that's how we work. And applaud what you've done up to now. It's a fabulous place. And by the way, further to I know you didn't take it seriously, my suggestion of scenario, and the second part of it is we would hold our meetings there from now on. Under the trees, serene.
Workshops.
We're going to have a little bit more to present. Thank you, Mauricio. Thank you. Well, why don't you? Where is the picture? One last thing that I have to mention is that the grading would also address this issue, that we have a bench that's supposed to go around the oak tree in the park, and right now we can't reinstall it until we get the ground properly graded. The oak tree was planted a little bit higher than grade, with a bit of a thought toward the existing drainage problems, but also thinking about future, that drainage is going to increasingly be a problem. So we wanted to plant it higher, but because of that, the rest of the ground, for people to be able to access the bench safely, the rest of the ground needs to be graded properly before we can go ahead and reinstall it. That's the last thing.
I'm happy it's coming back.
By the way, just on a personal note, I mean, for those of you who are parents, I can't say enough about what a thrill it's been to have a chance to work with two young professionals who happen to be my own children. There's a list of maintenance items that we recommend. We're really not going to get into the details here, but suffice it to say that there's a list of recommendations that we're that we are presenting to council, and we would ask subsequently that the village council in the very near future make a decision, because these maintenance items carry with them a recommendation for a certain level of maintenance, but we feel that that may be something that you'll need to determine, because depending on how you make that decision, it would impact future budgets. I guess we'll circulate these to council and to the manager. Finally, let me go on and I make some general comments about this whole project. The scope of our volunteerism evolved from designing the park to managing its construction to providing room and board in our own home for out-of-town workers. And I thank you, Diane, if you are home watching. To assisting with the labor, to overseeing a high school student each week so he could earn his volunteer hours, to simply pulling weeds. I'll speak as a taxpayer rather than as their father and share one story about each of them. The two timber framers from Charleston who built the pergola concluded it was a 3-person job. Brett offered, after designing it, of course, offered as a volunteer to fill the 3rd slot. Recognizing his skill set, they engaged Brett as their 3rd person, which in turn resulted in a reduced invoice to the village. Ariel took the initiative to save costs for the park, and here's one example. Out of a purchase of 108 plants at one of the nurseries, the vendor donated 46 of them. Another fun thing that we decided to do with this project is we applied for and were awarded a $2,500 grant from the Key Biscayne Community Foundation, which went directly towards a contractor's invoice. Throughout this project, we advanced personal funds to vendors and contractors to guarantee payment. Some costs I incurred individually, donated to the park, provided the documentation to the village, and the village in turn is issuing a letter of acknowledgement, so we thank them. As we reflected upon our experience, we concluded that in many ways for this project, our family functioned much like a park conservancy that you might find in other locations across the country, be it the Central Park Conservancy or the Lincoln Park Conservancy in Chicago. So as such, we decided to establish a conservancy through the Key Biscayne Community Foundation, which then served as a vehicle to help pay for a park invoice, for example, thus reducing the balance due to the village. So I want to just take a moment and tell you there is now the Key Biscayne Park and Public Open Space Conservancy. Which is, and the paragraph establishing it reads as follows. The Conservancy is the vehicle that will generate, that is meant to generate public support for and raise public and private money to explore and develop opportunities for the creation of, acquisition of, design of, construction of additional parks and other public open spaces on the island of Key Biscayne. utilize the Conservancy to provide for the enhancement and maintenance of existing parks and other public open spaces on Key Biscayne, and to conduct on-site educational sessions. The Conservancy anticipates developing and maintaining a working relationship with the Village of Key Biscayne Village Manager and/or Village Council to achieve our mutual goals. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Great report and great work.
Next item, Mayor.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry.
if I may add some thoughts. So I'll tell you that one of the very first meetings I had in the village was with Dr. Simon and with his family, and we rode out to the park, and I got a tour of the park, and I ran into to Brett bicycle riding around town, and I think very early on their experience and their contribution and dedication to the community warmed my heart and really let me know what Key Biscayne stands for and the level of community engagement. And I thank you for that. And we had talked about at that time doing a ribbon cutting and the check presentation. We had that opportunity. The senator and the representative were able to go out and tour the park. So I think we've been working well together. And I think we're approaching the end. So just so that we're clear and we don't need to go back and forth too many more times, I'd like to bring the council up to speed on what actions we've taken and just to see if we're all on the same page. So with regard to the letter of acknowledgement, that's something that the CFO, Chris Wallace, and I have worked out. In concept, legal is okay with it. We'll have to work out the details, but I think we'll be able to provide a letter of acknowledgement that basically says the work that the Simon family has done, that there would be a letter of acknowledgement to the tune of about $11,000, from which his accountant can do whatever from a tax perspective he needs. We'll present this in a way that is appropriate and consistent with what the village is comfortable with. With regard to budget and finances, I did look at our reconciliation of the accounts, and Dr. Simon and I have to get together and kind of reconcile the different versions, and I think there are a couple discrepancies, but high level, essentially, there was a $206,000 allocation for the park. Based on the records that we have, the actual expenditure was somewhere between 216 and 230. So we're close, and I'm going to get with Dr. Simon and share with him the information that we have. So with regard to any additional maintenance or capital improvements, Dr. Simon came with a list of several great suggestions that the park could have. And at the time, we looked back at the code. My authority was up to $10,000. So I asked that he prioritize the list, identify the $10,000 worth of projects based on 60 feet of French drainage. I think that can probably be done within that budget allocation, which would then probably bump some other things that we had said off the list. So with that said, there's also one invoice that we were back and forth with for $4,400 that Dr. Simon has now provided the supporting documentation that we feel comfortable paying that invoice. So we'll do the letter of acknowledgement for $12,000. We'll pay the $4,400, and we will implement up to $10,000 worth of improvements using existing budgeted funds within Public Works. My recommendation at this point is that any additional capital improvements or recommendations be considered as we go through the budget process.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
Normal.
Right, and are we okay with that?
Yes, sounds great.
Excellent.
I'm sorry. Next item is Ultra update. Mayor Davey.
Yes, I just wanted to get the word out to the public. If the manager could give a quick update on what's going on with the Ultra.
Yes.
Pardon me.
Sorry, thank you. So, just to kind of recap where we are, back in November, the village became aware of the Ultra Music Festival relocating to Virginia Key through a Miami Herald article. The council mobilized very quickly, and the new council was sworn in. Special call was held. Very clear direction was given to me and to the staff, and we basically were running two parallel tracks. That the village this is unacceptable to the village. We don't I think we're saying that Ultra is not the right event for Virginia Key. Virginia Key is not right for Ultra. We have no issues with Ultra in particular. As we worked through the process, staff has also been working the mitigation approach, that in the event that if the event proceeds this year or in future years, what can the village do to most effectively minimize the impact to our residents? We assembled a team, the council authorized budgets, contracts were entered into, and we got to work. We came up with a strategy with the team that we've been working with. We've had dozens of meetings on the public safety level as well as through the manager's office. I'm very thankful to each of you for the doors that you've opened for us and allowing that communication to move forward. Most recently, after the second meeting that we had with the city of Miami, we responded with a formal letter from special counsel on the issue that memorialized all of the items that we had discussed with the city of Miami. And subsequent to that, to us providing that letter, the Ultra General Counsel did reach out to the mayor, and I commend him for not accepting that meeting so that we can stay true to our strategy, which enabled us to have some leverage to work more closely and more intimately with Miami. And as a result of the most recent activities, the city of Miami has given our letter from special counsel to Ultra and has directed Ultra to address point by point each of the requests that we have had with regard to the MOT. That meeting is scheduled to take place tomorrow. So I'm thankful for the work that the team has done. I'm thankful to the manager's office of the city of Miami and the staff of the city of Miami for being as responsive and receptive to us. They have taken our calls, they responded to our emails. On the public safety side, police, fire, everybody has been working very closely to try to minimize the impacts. Notwithstanding, I know this is not exactly, we're working the mitigation side. I think most recently, I can say that we have also received a copy of the environmental management and remediation plan. I have not had an opportunity to study it yet, but I will look at it to share the direction of the council with the community. Initially, we were to look at the traffic impacts and how to mitigate that. And with regard to the environmental, the direction was to inspire, coordinate, collaborate the stakeholder groups on the environmental side. We've hosted several meetings of interested parties on the stakeholder group, which will dovetail into another item on the agenda this evening. We have been documenting all of the meetings that we've had and what has been taking place. I'm confident and I'm thankful that we've been given the opportunity by the council to administratively try to work through these issues. I can tell you it has strengthened the relationship between us to address longer term issues, including Bear Cut Bridge, including the causeway at large and what the future of that causeway would be. So long term, I'm grateful and I'm thankful for the opportunities, and we're doing the best we can, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thanks for what you're doing. I mean, I think, you know, we're getting some movement. I think we're working with the city of Miami. I think they're seeing our concerns. That's right now the best we can ask for. And then the next item is going to be important because we have to be ready for March 31st and April 1st.
In the spirit of the cooperation and the idea, I think that generally as a council, we're looking to monitor and document, and we've consistently come up with policies with the funding the traffic studies. I want to commend the Community Foundation. Melissa and Rumia have taken a lead of creating these coalitions and having meetings with different environmental groups that have a stake in Virginia Key. And as a result, they have put together a proposal for some objective environmental studies, one to be conducted through the University of Miami, and another one, a water study. Actually, there's 3 studies, University of Miami, there is the Miami Waterkeepers, and then there's also the Audubon Society with birds. Right. And I think it is nice that they're all working together. They've put a request out for up to $50,000 from our community to conduct these studies. And I will tell you, the University of Miami has waived all administrative costs in this proposal. So this is really hard research that's being done. And the bulk of this money would go towards the people that are studying on a postdoc capacity that would actually be carrying out these studies. So I think it's important for our community to understand what the impact of an event the size of Ultra has on Virginia Key, not from an environmental standpoint also, but as a steward, and then as the impact and effect that it has on our community. And I would like to propose that we ask the manager to come back with a proposal of how to fund this and to make sure that we do a couple things. One, that we ensure that these are objective reports and that we find the right way to fund them so that there's that direct funding source, and to work with the attorney on how to do that, and let her do that in the next meeting.
I'm all for it. I think my only concern is, do we have time to get this funded and then get it done prior to the event?
Again, commending the Community Foundation. They have taken the lead on this, and they've sort of done a seed funding. So I think that needs to be addressed with the manager of how we would step in, and there may be other people who would be involved in helping. But the time is now. We have to make a decision to assist with this, but the ball has already started rolling.
Ignacio?
Can we just vote to allocate the money to the mayor?
Not right now.
No?
We need an action item, I think. Would have to come back to us. Can we vote on it now?
Yeah, yes, we can.
It's $46,000, no public comments.
I mean, we would have to bring some item back. We can always ratify it, but, we have procurement procedures. We need to articulate findings as far as waivers, we just.
I mean, I would feel comfortable if you brought something back. I'm all for it, and I would vote for it, as based on what you provided. But I don't think we can take the action now, tonight.
Given the time is of the essence.
I understand.
Like Chad just said, is there anything we can do now and then ratify it later?
We can always bring back like a resolution ratifying the decision.
Of the manager?
Really the issue is that we have set procedures as far as purchasing, and, you guys can authorize the manager to proceed, and we can bring back an item. The manager has the authority to start spending some money. I mean, and you can just, by the time, in 2 weeks, we're gonna have another meeting. We can bring back the full agreement and
3 weeks.
or proposal, or 3 weeks.
I would be.
I'm for that.
Yeah.
Can this continue at the appropriate pace with the seed funding or whatever it's gotten through Citizen Scientist or the foundation or however that's gone? Or do you feel that you need the approval from us sooner?
My concern would be that if the research is not completed, it doesn't do us much. So if, let's say, the foundation is 10 or 15,000, and I'm not sure exactly how far in we are, but let's just say for the sake of discussion, we're 10 or 15,000 in, and if the agreement were not ratified, then we would have an issue. So perhaps if the council authorizes a not to exceed dollar amount and authorizes the concept of doing an environmental baseline study, and I will just say it right off the bat, it would be a waiver, because unless it's a PSA with the University of Miami. So I think there are some procedural things.
And we need to just look at, like, how this is being conducted. We're talking about land-based surveys. Are there engineering involved? I mean, there's state law. As a government, we have certain parameters. Now, if the foundation has already engaged these folks, I mean, is that what's happened?
There's no formal engagement, but the university has begun doing this work.
Counselor, instead of telling us why we can't do it, can you tell us how we can do it?
I said,
okay.
You can get
so
started
why don't we
at
just
10.
do it?
She has up to $10,000 that she can arrange. We can bring back an item.
But that she can start committing right now after tonight.
But there are certain items that we may need to modify this proposal, because there are certain state law procurement issues, as the manager said, CCNA requirements that we just can't get around.
I understand, but I'm looking at a face-in kind of funding.
Yeah.
And there's already seed money in. And if we put a little bit of seed money in, it helps the process, it minimizes our exposure as we monitor it. But on the other hand, we can't wait to get it perfect. And
Would it help if we just, we've got the underground utility workshop on the 19th at 6 p.m. If we met here at 5:30 and had a short meeting right before that? I mean, I expect we're all going to be at that workshop.
I am not going to be there.
You won't be, okay, well, you'll be absent.
Yeah.
We're not going to defer this item.
We know you're against it.
Yeah, so what we could do is ratify it then, if that's okay? Was that 2 weeks? Do you
Yeah.
think 2 weeks is sufficient?
It's fine. I think we just need to hammer out some of the,
So
maybe
can we,
eliminate some of the environment.
let's have a meeting, 5:30 on February 19th. We're going to have a special meeting regarding the environmental studies to be conducted on Virginia Key.
And in the meantime, the manager has authority to spend $10,000?
Yes, absolutely, up to her. She doesn't need our
has that
authority. She
without
has that
us.
without us saying
you
anything,
got the $10,000,
okay?
correct?
What's
Do we
wrong?
give her a not to
Hold
exceed
on, no, no.
amount of the 50,000? Does it matter?
I don't think any people aren't comfortable.
Okay.
Hey, that's why we're gonna move it up. So we give it ample time for public.
Can't do
It's a charity.
a donation.
We'll just ratify it. Yeah, that's what I said. We'll ratify it.
Okay, so I think one way we could proceed is if the council makes a motion to authorize a not to exceed of 50,000 for environmental baseline data, and that a contract be ratified retroactively, subject to legal form and sufficiency that we'll work on, and that we can do it at the 26th meeting. But the essence of what we're doing is confirmed by council.
Moved.
Move it.
And I would suggest move, and the formal, we've got auditors who watch this kind of stuff.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We'll get through it. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, next, sorry.
Next item, a creation of landscaping village physical plant committee.
Oh, we
Councilmember
moved that to the
Figueroa?
workshop?
Please.
Yes?
Yes.
But I just want to float out the idea to explain what I wanted, see if everyone's on board or not. I've had many conversations with Ceci Sanchez and other people in the village, that there,
Are you
people.
talking to other council members?
I thought you were the only one.
I'm hurt. Anyway, let's go. Sorry, I'm delayed.
But we also hear from many residents that come to the podium and explain concerns about everything from plants to potholes.
Those two.
I'm sorry?
Swales also.
Some people talk about swales. I thought it seems to be, I mean, the village has limited resources, but once again, we have a wealth of citizens willing to put in free time to do things.
Let's go, do it.
So creating a committee where there will be regular meetings, create a punch list, prioritized, and have them follow up with Public Works or whoever else.
Once you've got the judge on your side, what do?
Shut up.
Right. Let's go. We got that going. Perfect.
Next item, boat show, Councilmember Petros.
Okay, I'll make this quick. I had a very nice meeting with the people that are putting on the boat show and with Chief Press, who knew all of them. Unfortunately, he's not here right now. I would have liked him to come up and announce this. But there was a collaboration. The general sense that I had is they very much wanted to work with our community despite what the history is here, and that maybe we could start to, one, alleviate traffic. They've made some changes to their traffic plan that hopefully will help flow through that area during that weekend. Most importantly, the Seaquarium parking lot is not going to be used for VIP parking this year. It will only be for shared drivers, Uber and Lyft, and handicapped.
Great.
And so that should help alleviate
some of it.
The backup there at the Seaquarium. They've agreed to work with our community and minimize the red lights that happen so that there's more flow through the area and more coordinated efforts. So hopefully we will see a positive impact during the course of the boat show. The other really kind of exciting thing that came out of this is through Chief Press's contacts and both with the boat show and the Ritz-Carlton, they have agreed with no funding from the village to set up a shuttle for all village residents that will go between the Ritz-Carlton on Key Biscayne directly to the entrance of the boat show and back. I believe it'll leave every hour. I think it's, and Chief Press isn't here, but two things that are very important for people to know. Number one, there's no parking at the Ritz. So people need to walk, bike, Lime bikes are still there, or freebie. And I believe Chief Press was working to get more freebies on the island for that particular weekend.
Great.
And then they will also get picked up from the boat show and be able to come back. So that will hopefully alleviate traffic of individual Key Biscayne residents driving to park at the boat show, and obviously make it an easy way to get back and forth.
Awesome.
So Andre, if you want to speak to the announcement and how we're going to let the village know, other than talking about it tonight, that would be great also.
Right, so talking about it tonight, and we have a press release drafted that I think is really great, and it'll be going out within the next few days.
It's awesome. All right. Good job.
On cleanup on, because so many things, that the committee workshop is March 12th or?
The committee,
or
no,
February 12th?
February 19th.
The task force is having a meeting on the 12th to sort of do another dry run.
Right.
And then the 19th.
Actually, no, I think that hasn't been set. That was set like a tentative date in case it was necessary, but it's looking like it's not.
But I'm talking about the committee review, the
the committee review, I apologize.
March or
That's March
February?
12th.
That's
March 12th. I apologize.
February 19th is the underground task force.
I wanted to ask the manager, because Todd left, do you think that the confusion that I'm guilty of creating with the Art of Public Places committee, they can wait, he's not here, that they can wait until March 12th to get their designated liaison over that?
Do you want to act as interim? Why don't you act as interim?
Or I can add as interim and
Act as
resign.
interim.
Yeah, because otherwise they're
No, act as interim. You got it.
Perfect.
And the other thing, they just it's food for thought. We're going to be out almost all of July and August.
Yes, that's generally,
Oh, it is?
yeah, because people take their vacations and people are out of school. So motion to adjourn?
I didn't have it last year, though.
No, we had emergencies.
I imagine if we have an emergency, you call a meeting.
Okay.